Chapter 725. This chapter is Han little. No dragon rides. He hopped onto a cheese seashell and sped towards the Heart Island. A night's time had allowed him and Chi to recover, and Leo had also adjusted his condition. In order to avoid trouble, List decided to capture the light green sapphire dragon. Although the light green sapphire dragon could not be ridden due to the soul brand of the first-generation Dragon Knight, List was not willing to let it recover or escape. At most, he would just slaughter it and eat its meat. He had never heard of anyone eating dragon meat, so he didn't know if dragon meat could be eaten. If the dragon meat was cut off, would it directly turn into a ball of flame, a gem, or something else? It was hard to tell. However, the dragon bones were very simple. They would be completely preserved. Otherwise, there would not be weapons like the dragon bone weapons and the dragon tooth weapons in this world. Even fire dragons that could turn into elementals would leave behind their bones after they died. In any case, the amount of dragon blood that flowed out alone was enough to turn the entire Heart Island into a light green gem mine. Light emeralds were gemstones that could increase the speed of aura and magic. They were very valuable. In fact, every gemstone dragon's gemstone was very valuable. There was no difference in the price of magic items. They chatted as they sailed. List was very curious about Chi's collection of dragon blood. Chi, have you studied what happens to dragon blood? I've only used a little bit of blood for research. Currently, the dragon blood is still in the form of blood and hasn't undergone any changes. The conditions here aren't good enough to do experiments. Chi is also worried that there won't be enough data here, so she plans to go back and do more detailed experiments. With the spatial ring, Chi stored all the dragon blood she collected in the spatial ring, keeping the dragon blood fresh. The emerald dragon, sapphire dragon, and bronze dragon all shed a large amount of blood. Although a lot of it was diluted by the sea, most of it was quickly extracted by Chi using her ability to control water. It filled up 1/7 of the spatial ring's space. It's a pity that Leo's blood will turn into flames as soon as it leaves his body. Otherwise, he could provide you with plenty of experimental materials, List said. An angry roar sounded in his mind. Roar! List didn't care about this at all. When he reached the perfect phase, his soul imprint would be left in Leo's mind, never to fade away. The moment he rode on the dragon, Leo was destined to be unable to escape the shackles of fate. He was destined to be ridden by List until he died. By the way, Chi, how do you think we should deal with the heavily injured light green gemstone dragon? According to the Dragon Knight Do Chi manual, the light green gemstone dragon has the soul brand of the Eagle Kingdom's Dragon Knight. I'm afraid it will be very difficult to subdue it directly. Chi frowned and quickly replied, if we can find a way to imprison it, maybe Big Brother can use it as a source of resources for our country in the future. What if we can't find a way to imprison him? Well, then let's kill it, Chi said matter-of-factly. List was speechless for a while. Let me think about it. You go on with your work. He rummaged through Carl Violet's belongings and tried to find some clues. Carl Violet did not have many belongings. Other than thunder, there was also a set of silver armor. The main body of the armor was made of a mixture of mithril and orichalcum. The details were embedded with many gems and World of Warcraft materials. There were 9 gems in total. 5 light green, 1 sapphire, 1 ruby, 1 topaz, and 1 amethyst. The sapphire's attribute was strength, the ruby's attribute was combat energy enhancement, the topaz's attribute was toughness, and the amethyst's attribute was recovery speed. These 9 gems were all embedded in the waist of the armor. Unfortunately, the armor is a little small. I need to modify it before I can wear it. List felt it was a pity. The silver armor and the silver thunder's fury looked really cool. However, he was already 1.9 meters tall and Carl Violet was at most 1.72 meters tall. There was a head difference in height, so he could not wear the armor without modifying it. I'll call this armor Thunder's roar, no reason, just to match Thunder's fury. In addition to Thunder's fury and Thunder's roar, Carl Violet also had an exquisite pendant that looked like a piece of tortoiseshell. It was about the size of a palm, flashing with a purple luster, and the lines were very vivid, not like an artificially made item. At first glance, Liszt had a similar experience to seeing the phoenix feather. Using magic eyes, he could see that the tortoiseshell had a rich and substantial thunder magic, which was indeed comparable to the fire magic of the phoenix feather. So it could be a part of a lesser dragon's body? Since it's in the shape of a tortoiseshell, it should be the tortoiseshell of a lesser dragon turtle? A palm-sized lesser dragon turtle? Liszt couldn't figure it out. Even if a lesser dragon didn't have the size of a dragon, it certainly wouldn't be small enough to be the size of a pet. Unless it's a newly hatched turtle. He had seen documentaries about leatherback turtles on Earth. The leatherback turtle, which could grow up to 1.5 meters in size, was the largest turtle in the world, but its hatchlings were only a few centimeters long. So for the time being, this purple, crystal-clear, gem-like tortoiseshell was regarded as the tortoiseshell of a lesser dragon turtle cub, and its value was equivalent to the phoenix feather. However, its value was mainly for a thunder knight, and it had no effect on a fire knight. Speaking of a thunder knight, it seems that my little follower, Emily, is very suitable for this tortoiseshell. Should I give it to her to assist in her training? Liszt's mouth evoked a smile. That immature, shriveled girl has become a slim and graceful girl. Soon, he suppressed his impetuous thoughts and remembered that he still had clues about the lesser dragon phoenix. In the burning mountain of the Eagle Kingdom, there was likely to be a lesser dragon phoenix. He had to take some time to search for it. The smoke mission's prompt should not be empty. There really was a lesser dragon phoenix in the burning mountain. Unknowingly, he had almost reached the Heart Island. At this time, through Leo, Liszt successfully sensed the breath of a dragon in the distance. The breath of a dragon spread very far. Ordinary creatures might not be able to detect it, but dragons could easily sense each other, unless they hid in a human's body like Leo. The sensing range was about a few kilometers. So in the blink of an eye, Liszt had already seen the Heart Island in the distance, and a huge light green dragon lying on the Heart Island. The Heart Island was not big, and almost 1/3 of the area was occupied by the light green gemstone dragon. Its posture doesn't look like it's sleeping, but more like it's fainting? When Liszt saw this, a smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. He motioned for Achi to stop the shell first and then called Leo. Leo rushed out of his chest. Roar! In an instant, it changed into a majestic fire dragon. Liszt directly rode on it and began to investigate the light green gemstone dragon from a high altitude to prevent it from suddenly attacking people. However, when he looked through the dragon's eyes, his scalp went numb. Countless colorful magic threads, like tree roots, were piercing into the light green gemstone dragon's body. It seemed to be stealing the light green gemstone dragon's magic power. The light green magic light that should have been dazzling was now so dim that it seemed like it would be extinguished at any time. The sturdy light green gemstone dragon was now only skin and bones. Chapter 726. The light green gemstone dragon was dying. Liszt soon discovered that the colorful roots came from the roots of a short shrub. The shrub grew in a small pit next to the light green gemstone dragon's head. If I remember correctly, I was the one who left this small pit. There used to be a mind fruit tree here. In order to prevent the mind fruit tree from losing its magic, I transplanted the whole dead mind fruit tree. I didn't expect a small tree to grow in the pit and absorb the magic of the light green gemstone dragon. After confirming that neither the light green gemstone dragon nor the small shrub was in danger, Liszt suddenly jumped off Leo's back and jumped onto the body of the light green gemstone dragon. The skinny dragon was not dead, but its breath had been severely weakened and it was not far from death. The wounds on its body were not bleeding, nor were they healing. There were only cracks in the white flesh. That was the appearance of the muscles after the blood had been drained. No wonder the smoke mission told me that I could get a dragon. This light green gemstone dragon is dying, and there is no difficulty in getting it at all. List slightly complained in his heart. He knew that a dragon would not be so easy to get. At least a series of smoke missions had to be issued, and the threads of fate of the dragon bit by bit to finally fall into his hands. That was how Leo got the dragon. The invisible dragon had also done a lot of chain missions. He walked down the body of the light green gemstone dragon and slowly came to the small shrub. After confirming that there was really no danger, he suddenly waved his hand to indicate that a chi could come over. As for Leo, it seemed that after seeing the tragic state of the light green gemstone dragon, it was a little irritable and very afraid of the shrub in the small pit of the Mind Island. But List had no time to appease it for the time being. He squatted on the edge of the pit and carefully observed the small shrub in the pit. He found that the whole tree was flowing with colorful magic. He had only seen this kind of magic once. The magic of the mind fruit tree is this color. So this shouldn't be a new mind fruit tree, right? The growth position is the same, the magic color is the same, and this tree is still absorbing the magic of the dragon to grow. This is obviously the rhythm of breeding the mind fruit tree. When he thought about it this way, he immediately realized that something was different. On the branches of the small shrub, he successfully found 4 flower buds between the branches. They were very small and had not bloomed yet, but they seemed to be expanding very slowly. He carefully compared the withered branches of the spirit fruit tree in the center of the space ring and found that the 2 trees were very similar in terms of shape. The twists and turns of the branches and the structure were all the same. However, even the bark of the tree had fallen off, so it was impossible for it to return to its original state. A chi jumped down from the waterspout and joined the research team. List gently summoned the smoke mission. Mission completed. Reward: a light emerald dragon. The mission was completed without any surprises. Then, a new mission appeared. Mission: you have obtained temporary ownership of a light green gemstone dragon, but its physical condition is not good, and its life is in danger. You have the choice to decide its fate. Do you want the light green gemstone dragon to be swallowed by the mind fruit tree and grow a new mystic dragon's mind fruit, or do you want to eradicate the mind fruit tree and save the light green gemstone dragon? Reward: a light emerald mine. Can't I choose both? List was speechless. Whether it was the mystic dragon's mind fruit or the light green gemstone dragon, he wanted them both. The mystic dragon's mind fruit was the guarantee of riding a dragon in the future, and basically guaranteed victory in every battle of the soul. The light green gemstone dragon could be said to be both a fighting force and a resource production unit that could be used in time. Both sides were flesh, and he could not bear to lose either. Uncomfortable. Why do I have to choose to take away the dragon that was promised to me? He turned around and asked, Achi, the situation now is very clear. On one side is the light green gemstone dragon. As long as the mind fruit tree is eradicated, the light green gemstone dragon can be saved. On the other side is the mystic dragon's mind fruit tree. As long as the mind fruit tree is allowed to swallow the light green gemstone dragon, it can bear 4 mystic dragons' mind fruit. He paused and asked, "What do you think I should choose?" "Brother, Achi thinks that we should let the light green gemstone dragon be swallowed and cultivate the mystic dragon's mind fruit." List was surprised. It seemed that Achi's choice was a little too decisive. Achi said seriously, "The light green gemstone dragon has the soul brand of the first-generation Dragon Knight. Even if it recovers, it may not be driven by you, brother. Moreover, the Eagle Kingdom will not let its own dragon wander outside. It is very risky to imprison it. The most cost-effective way is to exchange it for 4 mystic dragons' mind fruit. In the future, brother can ride 4 more dragons." What she said made sense. List did not know how to refute for a while. He wanted a dragon. He wanted a dragon now. Especially when the dragon happened to be in front of him, he wanted it even more. But as Achi said, it was not because he wanted a dragon that the light green gemstone dragon was willing to be his dragon. The soul brand was difficult to erase, unless he was willing to pay a mystic dragon's mind fruit as the price. This was obviously impossible. Saving a heavily injured dragon that was more than 400 years old would also have to sacrifice a future dragon. It was extremely not worth it, but it was difficult to really give it up. After all, the dragon was in front of him. The dragon that made countless knights crazy was at his fingertips. Even if he already had Leo, he still could not make a decision. Achi said again, "Brother, the light green gemstone dragon looks like it's dying. You should make a decision quickly. If you give up the light green gemstone dragon, Achi wants to do some experiments before the light green gemstone dragon dies." Witnessing the death of a dragon will definitely enrich Achi's understanding of the origin of magic. Looking at the dying light green gemstone dragon. Looking at the blooming fruit tree of the soul. Looking at Achi's expectant expression again, List finally made a decision. "I give up the light green gemstone dragon. Achi, you do the experiment." He constantly comforted himself in his heart that this was to let Achi do the experiment. That was why he reluctantly gave up a dragon. Achi was more important than a dragon. Then Achi will do the experiment. Achi was very happy. She liked dragons, but after becoming a magic shooter, she liked to study dragons even more. It's really a big, beautiful dragon. Achi didn't expect to have a dragon as an experimental subject one day. "I feel so happy." List looked up at the sky. At a 45-degree angle, he let out a faint sigh. From the corner of his eyes, he saw that Leo was still circling around the island of the soul, full of fear for the fruit tree of the soul on the island. He could instinctively feel that this tree was a great threat to the dragon. List suppressed the worry in his heart. He walked directly to the edge of the cliff, waved to Leo, and put Leo into his body to sleep. To prevent Leo from being unable to bear it and destroying the fruit tree of the soul, an evil dragon would not easily escape when it encountered an existence that could threaten it. The best response was to face the difficulty and destroy it. He took back Leo. He walked back again and watched for a while how Achi collected specimens, how she fiddled with the experimental equipment, and how she stimulated the physiological response of the light green gemstone dragon. The more he watched, the more upset he felt. He sat on the edge of the small pit, staring at the 4 half-blooming flower buds, in a daze. A dragon, just like that? No! Chapter 727. The Heart Island, the Emerald Dragon, and the Mind Fruit Tree were all worthy of research. Especially this newly grown Mind Fruit Tree. List remembered clearly that he had dug out every single root of the previous Mind Fruit Tree. So, in theory, the Mind Fruit Tree could not be reborn. But it was still reborn. It seems that this island has an extraordinary origin. Even the Mind Fruit Tree has special conditions for it to be reborn. It's not a simple inheritance of sprouting and blossoming. He looked at the light green gemstone dragon, whose aura had weakened to the point where it could no longer condense. He kept thinking. Achi was doing research. She tried to use the magic potion to maintain the life of the light green gemstone dragon, but the magic effect of the magic potion was too weak to maintain the dissipation of the light green gemstone dragon's magic. She even wanted to use the magic of the weave to replace the light green gemstone dragon and accept the absorption of the Mind Fruit Tree. But the magic of the weave did not seem to be compatible with the Mind Fruit Tree. "Brother, the roots of the Mind Fruit Tree are very strange. They do not come directly from the ground, and there are not many roots at all. These roots are more like transmission channels in the weave. They do not exist in physical form. This shows the nature of the weave of the Mind Fruit Tree." "So it is also a small version of the weave?" "Somewhat similar, but its weave is more special. It is single-minded and overbearing. It only absorbs and does not dissipate. Achi tried hard to describe. She did not have the eye of magic, but she had a very keen perception. She fully sensed how the mind fruit tree swallowed the light green gemstone dragon. Right, since the magic of the weave is incompatible with the mind fruit tree, but the magic of the magic potion is compatible. Can my dragon's fighting energy be compatible too? List suddenly thought. If I use my dragon's fighting energy instead and supplement it with the magic potion, can I keep the light green gemstone dragon alive? Although reason made him choose the enchanting dragon's soul fruit, he could not remain indifferent to the death of a dragon. As long as there was a chance, he was willing to save the light green gemstone dragon. Achi thought seriously and said, "It is possible. Then let's try it. Leo and I are one. If necessary, it can transfer magic to me. My dragon's fighting energy should be able to last for a long time. Then, brother, use your dragon's fighting energy to transfer into the light green gemstone dragon's body. I will build a transmission channel between you and the mind fruit tree." Alright. Although there were still many unanswered questions, the most important thing now was to find out how to save the dragon. He immediately activated the surging dragon energy in his body and poured out all the potions in his space ring for himself and the light green gem dragon to consume in order to sustain the fruit of soul's consumption. Roar! Leo sensed that List was constantly releasing his combat energy and quickly objected to what List was doing. However, he was forcefully suppressed and could only succumb to List's tyranny. Ever since he became one with the dragon, he found that as a tyrannical dragon, he was actually not as tyrannical as List in many aspects. This human was a boorish fellow who would drug them as he pleased. Oh! Roar! It could only watch helplessly. List single-handedly transmitted the dragon's combat energy into the body of the light green gem dragon. Relying on the insight of the Eye of Magic, he quickly transmitted the combat energy to the magic channel established by Achi, and then used this to connect with the colorful roots of the Fruit of Soul. Soon, the dragon's battle energy was devoured by the Soul Fruit Tree. With the addition of a new Dragon Knight, the breath of the light green gem dragon was finally stabilized. Achi continued to provide potions to the light green gem dragon and injected them into its body, helping the light green gem dragon to restore its magic power. A dynamic balance was quickly reached. Okay, I can stabilize the transmission. Achi, continue to experiment, study the light green gem dragon, study the Fruit of Soul, study everything that can be studied on this island. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Maybe you can take this opportunity to crack the deeper mystery of the magic net. List felt that he was in a good state, so he did not need Achi to waste time to save the dragon. He hoped that Achi could crack the secret. First, Achi needed to accumulate knowledge to grow and become stronger. Second, he was very curious about everything on the Island of Soul. The dragon fed the Fruit of Soul. The Fruit of Soul helped in the Battle of Soul. After the Battle of Soul, he could ride many dragons and catch them to feed the Fruit of Soul. This was simply a perfect cycle, as if he could see countless dragons surrounding him. At that time, he would not be a simple dragon knight, but a knight of the dragons, a dragon shepherd. If he continued to cultivate the Fruit of Soul and led a large group of dragons to search for dragons, he might have a chance to unify the legendary continent. By then, thousands of dragons would come to him. He would establish the 10,000 Dragon Empire and be called the Dragon Emperor. Wouldn't that be wonderful? Wonderful! Wonderful! It's just that the speed at which the Fruit of Soul blooms seems to be a little slow. List had been fantasizing about how cool he would be as the Dragon Emperor for a long time, but the 4 flower buds had not completely bloomed. At this time, he realized that his dragon's battle energy was almost depleted, and there were not many potions left. Achi, who had been busy doing research, also realized the seriousness of the problem. "Brother, I'm afraid that the difficulty of brewing the Fruit of Soul is much greater than expected. I'm afraid that you can't maintain the condensation of the 4 fruits with only your dragon's battle energy and the magic power of the light green gem dragon. How should we solve this? Is Leo's magic power enough? Roar! It shouldn't be enough. We still don't know the speed of the Fruit of Soul's condensation, but judging from the speed at which the magic is brewing when it blooms, the consumption of the light green gem dragon's magic power, and Brother's magic power and potion reserves, we can only cultivate 1 fruit before it's depleted. 1 fruit. List was speechless. Achi nodded. This is under the premise that the life of the light green gem dragon is guaranteed. If we don't have to guarantee its life, we can probably cultivate 2 fruit. If we're lucky, we can cultivate 3 fruit. In other words, no matter what, we have to give up 1 fruit. Yes. How do we give up one of them and pluck the flower directly? Achi can cut off the channel of magic power transmission. Then we'll cut off 1 first and carefully calculate whether we should give up the other flowers or not. List made a prompt decision. There was no time for hesitation. He did not want to fail because of greed. Achi quickly cast magic and cut off the magic channel of one of the flowers. Then the flower could no longer absorb magic power and stopped blooming. Seeing this, List suddenly thought, Achi, if we build a magic channel for it again, will it be able to grow again? Achi's eyes lit up. It's possible. Then let's try. When the channel was re-established, as List guessed, the flower bloomed again. This time, List's disappointment was swept away. Achi, cut off the magic channel of the 3 flowers. We'll cultivate them 1 by 1. Let's cultivate 1 fruit first, then talk about the rest. He even thought of another way to cultivate the Fruit of Soul's soul, to provide it with magic power intermittently. This way, without harming the dragon's life, they could cultivate more fruits over a longer period of time. In that case, it was a brilliant and glorious road to riches. Chapter 728. This chapter is Ice Tyrannosaurus Rex. After draining a large amount of Leo's magic power, the first soul fruit of the mysterious dragon was finally ripened. Under the afternoon sun, it shone with a colorful luster. It was rounder than an apple, and there was no fragrance or loss of magic power. Without the eyes of magic, one would only think that it was a fruit that looked like an apple. Even Achi, as a magic shooter, could not sense its magic power. The magic power of the ripened soul fruit flowed inside, and the colorful luster gradually turned into the color of chaos. It was neither black nor white, illusory yet real, like fog and haze. The colorful luster is because the magic power shows various properties, while the chaos is because the magic power has integrated its own properties during ripening and appears to have no properties. List guessed that this was the result of the convergence of the magic particles. Through previous research, the properties of magic power were related to the movement of magic particles. The units of magic power were runes, the units of runes were magic power, and the units of magic power were small magic particles. The movement and stillness of magic particles were the main factors for magic power to turn into matter or matter into magic power. Accelerating the movement of magic particles could be seen as the process of casting magic. Mages used their mental power to interfere with the movement of magic particles to release magic power. At the level of magic shooter, they could feel that magic particles were also subdivided, and the subdivided smaller units were magic particles. The different movement of magic particles gave different properties to magic power. This was the research result of Achi's careful study of the magic net. Her own body had already been elementalized, which meant that the smallest unit of magic power in her body was a kind of magic particle with water properties. However, pure water magic had too many limitations. For example, not being able to fly was a huge drawback. For this reason, Achi had always wanted to complete the interference of the magic particles in her elementalized body through in-depth study of the magic net, so that she could release other types of magic. This research was carried out cautiously. After List knew about it, He repeatedly warned her to take it slow and not to be impatient. If she failed, Achi would be the one destroyed, and List was absolutely reluctant to do so. It was also because of List's interference that Achi's research on magic particles did not make much progress, and she still could not release magic of other schools. At this moment, seeing the ripening changes of the enigmatic dragon's soul fruit, List suddenly thought, if Achi studies the enigmatic dragon's soul fruit, she might have a deeper understanding of magic particles, effectively helping her evolve from a water magic shooter to an all-element magic shooter. I should take out an enigmatic dragon's soul fruit for her to study. Thinking of this, he decisively plucked the soul fruit and handed it to Achi. Take it and study it. The colorful magic will quickly turn into chaos magic. The soul fruit may contain information about magic particles. Aren't you going to keep the dragon? It doesn't matter. I still have two. Moreover, this mind fruit tree is still alive. I still have a chance to cultivate new mystifying dragon's mind fruit. List smiled in a carefree manner and waved his hand generously. Pay attention when you're researching. Try not to damage the integrity of the enigmatic dragon's soul fruit if you can. It's fine even if you do. And thank you, big brother. Achi happily took the fruit and put it into her spatial ring. Looking at the 3 flowers on the mind fruit tree that had not fully bloomed, List was in a good mood. As long as he spent time, the mind fruit tree would grow new fruits sooner or later. Maybe after the first batch was plucked, another batch would grow. Even if the mind fruit tree died, it would not take long for a new mind fruit tree to grow here. There must be a secret under this small pit. When the mind fruit tree completes its mission, I will carefully explore it and see what's under the pit. Maybe it's the remains of a dragon. After all, the enigmatic dragon's soul fruit is the result of devouring a dragon. The remains of the dragon are probably only a few bones, but the blood when it died may have turned into minerals. Even if not, the blood shed by the light emerald dragon should have soaked the mind island and turned into a light emerald mine. He glanced at Achi, who was currently treating the light green gemstone dragon that was barely hanging on to its last breath. He gently summoned the smoke mission. Mission: you have obtained the temporary ownership of a light emerald dragon, but its physical condition is not good, and its life is in danger. You have the choice to decide its fate. Let the light emerald dragon be devoured by the mind fruit tree to breed a new enigmatic dragon's soul fruit, or eradicate the mind fruit tree to save the light emerald dragon. Reward: a light emerald mine. Huh! The mission was not completed? List frowned, puzzled by the mission's lack of activity. Then he looked at the content above again and interpreted it again. Could it be that the mission requires the eradication of the mind fruit tree or the light emerald dragon to be devoured? Can't the two coexist? It shouldn't be like this. The smoke mission shouldn't have a mandatory option. He was already convinced that the smoke mission was a special product of the fusion of the smoke dragon's power of fate and his subconscious. It was driven by his own will. As an adult, his subconscious would never have such an either-or idea. Being inclusive was the way to go. Or, is there anything else I overlooked? For example, the light emerald dragon can't be saved. As soon as this thought arose, Achi's shout came. Brother, the breath of the light emerald dragon is stable. Its life is saved. Really? Well done. List responded. Then he fell into his previous thoughts. Since the light emerald dragon has survived, does that mean that there is something wrong with the mind fruit tree? Will it wither without the magic power of the light emerald dragon? Thinking of this, he was suddenly shocked. He quickly observed the mind fruit tree. Sure enough, he found a serious phenomenon. The flowers of the mind fruit tree were withering at a very slow rate, or the whole tree was losing magic power at a slow rate. The severed colorful magic roots were collapsing. Without the magic supply, the fruit tree seemed to be unable to maintain its own magic balance. Achi, come and take a look. The mind fruit tree is in trouble. He called Achi over, and the two of them worked together to find a way to stop the withering of the mind fruit tree. However, whether it was the Dragon Knight or the magic shooter, the withering of the mind fruit tree was irreversible when they could not continue to provide dragon magic or dragon aura. After a few breaths, List said decisively, "It seems that the mind fruit tree can't survive in the wild. We can only kill the light emerald dragon to help it ripen a new mind fruit, but the value of 1-for-1 is not great. Achi, according to your judgment, it seems that the light emerald dragon can only ripen one more fruit?" "Yes, brother. If it was the light emerald dragon in its heyday, it could definitely ripen 3 or more fruits, but it was seriously injured. If it wasn't for your dragon aura, it couldn't even ripen 2 fruits. Then don't trade." List had an idea. "Let's dig it up and stuff it into the space ring. The space ring could stop everything. Unless the soul was protected by special means, it would die if it entered. Other objects, whether it was plants or flames, would be absolutely still after entering." Thinking of this, the two of them quickly dug out the mind fruit tree and stuffed it into the space ring. But after putting it in, before List could relax, his face changed. Something is wrong. The mind fruit tree is still losing magic power. Chapter 729. The mind fruit tree in the space ring was still losing its magic power and could not be stopped at all. For now, he could either re-establish the magic channel for the mind fruit tree and use the emerald dragon to cultivate the last mind fruit, or let it lose its magic power and waste the 3 flower buds that could not bloom. Forget it. List hesitated for a moment, then decisively put down the struggle in his heart. He took the mind fruit tree out of the space ring and handed it to Achi. "Take it for research. Carefully study the unique characteristics of the mind fruit tree while it has not completely withered." Okay. It was naturally the best result to unearth the secret of the mind fruit tree. It was far more valuable than killing the emerald dragon in exchange for a mind fruit. Achi began to study the mind fruit tree. List did not stand aside. He also used magic eyes to constantly observe the magic power of the mind fruit tree and provide real-time information to Achi. At the same time, he took the bone shovel and continued to dig the previous small pit. There used to be a fruit tree that bore 3 mind fruits in the small pit. Now, a mind fruit tree had grown here. There must be a secret in this land. He kept digging with the bone shovel and observing with the eye of magic. Almost every shovel of soil contained a seed that could stimulate the growth of the mind fruit tree. Now he no longer thought that the mind fruit tree was just a special plant. It could make the gem of the invisible dragon ineffective. It showed how special the nature of the mind fruit tree was. He even had some bold guesses in his mind. The mind fruit tree might be related to the holy dragons. So far, he had come into contact with 2 kinds of holy dragons. The space gem of the invisible dragon was extraordinary, and the power of fate of the smoke dragon was even more terrifying. From the point of view of production resources, the gem dragon and the metal dragon were undoubtedly very important. But from the point of view of the special nature of power, the elemental dragon's willful switching between magic power form and flesh form was undoubtedly more magical than the gem dragon and the metal dragon. The magic of the holy dragon was needless to say. In other words, the power level of the holy dragon was obviously higher than that of the elemental dragon, and the power level of the elemental dragon was higher than that of the metal dragon and gem dragon. To be able to make the static effect of the space gem ineffective, it shows that the power level of the mind fruit tree is at least the same as that of the invisible dragon. It also uses the devouring dragon as nourishment and bears fruit that can bind the dragon's spiritual power. It shows that the mind fruit tree is definitely related to dragons. His thoughts continued to wander. Legend had it that the Elven King could transform into a forest, and even dragons lived in it. Was the soul fruit tree related to the Elven King? Or is it related to the Emerald Dragon's dream power or the Twilight Dragon's time power? It should have nothing to do with the life force of the fairy dragon, or is it really just some kind of magical plant? The bone shovel dug shovel by shovel. Soil had piled up around the small pit, but List did not find anything related to the seeds, nor did he find anything with magic power. After digging down for about 2 meters, they reached the rocks under the soil. This was a rocky island. As a dragon knight, List had great strength and stamina. His digging efficiency was extremely high. After an hour, he had dug out a circular pit with a diameter of 1 meter. At the bottom of the pit were flat rocks, the same rocks as the cliffs around the island. The rock is not broken. It's a whole body. I can't tell what kind of rock it is. List did not know much about geography, so he could not deduce how the Heart Island was formed. However, one thing was clear. It was not a volcanic island, so it had nothing to do with volcanic eruptions. So here's the problem. The bottom is a rock layer. It's impossible to hide a seed, so how did the heart fruit tree grow? I was very sure that if all the roots of the withered heart fruit tree were dug out, it was unlikely that a single root would remain and grow into a new heart fruit tree. There were many doubts, but since he could not find the seed, he could only think that he had done something dirty last time and left a root behind. It was easy to prove this. I have 2 heart fruit trees now, and I have plenty of roots. Does this mean that I can continue to artificially cultivate the heart fruit tree? He filled a pot with soil, buried a withered root, and put it in his spatial ring. Then he broke the rock, made sure that there was still rock under the rock, and filled it with the surrounding soil. If his conjecture was correct, and the roots were the seeds, then by getting some dragon blood from the light green gemstone dragon, the soil in the pot would breed a new fruit of the mind sooner or later. If the root was not a seed, but related to the environment, then the backfilling place might grow a new heart fruit tree. In short, for a long time in the future, the Heart Island would be a key research target. His gaze returned to the heart fruit tree from the big pit. The heart fruit tree, which had lost its magic power, was withering at a speed visible to the naked eye. Achi carefully cut many small pieces and experimented with different methods. List could not help at all. He paid attention to the light green gemstone dragon that was still unconscious. The light green gemstone dragon was so thin that it was only skin and bones, and its wounds had not healed. Only its weak breathing existed. However, its magic power was becoming stable. Although it was weak, it was recovering bit by bit. After all, he had fed it a lot of magic potions. I don't know when the light green gemstone dragon will wake up, and how long it will take to recover from its injuries. The high magic power in a dragon's body recovers very quickly, but this time, its supreme magic was probably shaken. It will be difficult for it to recover. Leo relied on the volcano's supreme magic, and the remaining supreme magic of the fire dragon to grow so big. Supreme magic was the dragon will, the ultimate magic power that maintained Leo's switch between magic form and flesh form. It was also the magic power left by the previous fire dragon. High magic was the magic power that the dragon casually emitted. It was on the same level as the magic power of the magic net. High magic was easy to recover, and it could be quickly recovered with some medicine and meat. Supreme magic, on the other hand, had to be refined and condensed bit by bit. If the light green gemstone dragon wanted to recover its previous strength, it would probably take more than a year and a half. But it's also good. When its strength is weakened, it will be a chance for me to find a way to conquer it. List touched the scales on the light green gemstone dragon's neck, which were still warm, and smiled. The process was a bit tortuous, but in the end, this dragon was captured by me. He squinted at the exposed dragon tooth platform. I definitely can't bear to use the enchanting dragon's soul fruit, but I also have to deal with the brand of the first dragon knight. He quickly wondered if he should ride on the light green gemstone dragon and give it a fierce spiritual battle while it was unconscious and its spirit force was weakened. If he erased the spiritual brand, the light green gemstone dragon would completely surrender. Chapter 730. The position of the Dragon Fang platform was very strange. It was located at the point where the dragon's neck and torso connected, between the shoulder blades of the wings. When the dragon flapped its wings and flew, the Dragon Fang platform happened to be under the protection of the wings. This ensured the knight's safety. Only when the knight's back was exposed would the dragon knight be threatened. And the gap between the wings and the neck was the dragon knight's attack area. The length of the dragon lance did not need to be longer than the dragon's body, because the dragon's fighting energy could be released. The dragon lance only needed to ensure that it could reach out from the gap when the wings vibrated and aim in all directions. A true close combat assassination required the dragon to turn over and attack back to back. The rest of the time, one just needed to cooperate with the dragon. The dragon would be the main force in melee combat, and the knight would be the output of fighting energy. So the dragon was the perfect mount for the knight. The dragon knight was the best example of man and mount as one. The strength of the dragon combined with the wisdom of the man made the dragon knight the peak power to rule the world. The fallen light green gem dragon no longer had the ability to protect its Dragon Fang platform. Liszt did not know if there was a dragon knight who had used this method to ride a dragon, but the opportunity was in front of him, and he would not miss it. Very good. When the light green gem dragon fell, there was no defense, and the Dragon Fang platform was completely exposed. The position is very suitable for riding. With a leap, he jumped onto the neck of the light green gem dragon, took 2 more steps to the Dragon Fang platform, and stepped on the bone. Then he sat down. His mind was in a trance, and he felt the fighting energy in his body begin to surge, as if it wanted to connect with the light green gem dragon's magic power. But after several surges, it broke at the critical moment. It was as if the light green gem dragon's magic power could not complete the connection and support the spiritual battle. This was completely different from the first time Liszt rode Leo. When he rode on Leo's Dragon Fang platform, he instantly connected his fighting energy and magic power. Then his mind rushed into Leo's mind and started the spiritual battle. Is the light green gem dragon too weak, or is it resisting me riding it? With a thought, Liszt decided to take the initiative. He madly circulated his fighting energy according to the trajectory when he rode Leo, forcibly capturing the light green gem dragon's magic power and completing the connection. His behavior was rough, but this method worked quickly. When the magic power and the aura were connected, Liszt quickly felt the pressure on his body increase with the help of the special nature of the aura and magic power. It was as if he was lying on a sickbed and opening his eyes with difficulty. His heavy eyelids closed his 5 senses several times, urging him to fall asleep. Liszt, who had experienced a battle of the soul, endured the experience and opened his eyes. The next moment, the scene in front of him changed. This was a world that exuded a strong aroma of wine. He was stepping on a huge broken bone of an unknown animal. There were countless other bones around the bone, all of which were soaked in water. The water smelled of alcohol, and there was no doubt that it was all wine. In the depths of the bone there was a huge light green gem. The gem was in a fragmented state and every crack was gurgling with wine. On top of the gem, there was a light green gemstone dragon. The dragon was sleeping soundly. This is the light green gemstone dragon's soul incarnation? If I defeat it, can I win the battle of the soul? Liszt tried to take 2 steps forward. He was very confused as to why the light green gemstone dragon's soul world looked so strange. It was like a drunkard's fantasy world. Could it be that the light green gemstone dragon was actually a drunkard dragon? And what did these bones mean? Did it mean that it liked to eat bones? However, these were secondary. The most important thing now was to kill this light green gemstone dragon that was sleeping soundly, just like how he killed the evil dragon that was trapped by the 7-colored chain in Leo's soul world. Come out, my big treasure sword. Roland called out softly. The smoke that belonged to the smoke dragon's power instantly turned into a fire element ice soul dragon slaying sword. He was actually a little curious as to whether this sword was the projection of his soul or the manifestation of the power of fate. Or perhaps the two were one. Perhaps the power of fate had already fused with his soul and was inseparable. Roland jumped up. He jumped onto the huge broken light green gem and looked at the sleeping light green gemstone dragon up close. The dragon did not have any reaction. It seemed that it was seriously injured and unconscious in the real world, which also caused it to be seriously injured and unconscious in the soul world. In particular, the surface of its body was full of cracks, as if it would break at any time. Not challenging at all. Liszt smiled lightly. He raised the big red treasure sword and was about to kill the light green gemstone dragon's soul incarnation. However, at this moment, there was a sudden flash in front of him. A fully armed knight suddenly appeared in front of him and raised the 5-meter-long dragon spear in his hand, swatting away Liszt's big red treasure sword. Then, he quickly ran towards Liszt, trying to assassinate him with one shot. Liszt's reaction was fast. He directly dodged and jumped away, constantly looking at the knight who suddenly appeared. With just one look, he seemed to have already understood the identity of the other party. The royal dragon knight of the Eagle Kingdom more than 300 years ago, Abraham Moonlight Silver. He was also the first-generation dragon knight of the light green gemstone dragon, the person who left the soul imprint. So you are the soul imprint of the dragon knight. In this case, killing you is the key to winning the soul battle? Liszt did not know how the other dragon knight reached an agreement with the soul imprint, and whether or not he also wanted to kill this dragon knight incarnation of the soul imprint. But he knew that what he had to do was to fight. An inch longer, an inch stronger. Abraham Moonlight Silver's soul imprint was just a will projection, but it had all the combat experience of the dragon knight. It was not known how strong he was when he was alive, but the dragon knight who could leave a soul imprint were all dragon knights at the peak stage, and their strength was definitely not weak. After a few fights, Liszt found that he did not have the slightest upper hand, and was forcibly suppressed by the other party with a dragon spear. However, he soon discovered an advantageous place. Abraham Moonlight Silver, who was holding the dragon spear, did not fight smoothly, especially with the 5-meter-long dragon spear. It was inconvenient to change direction and brandish it, not to mention to use exquisite do-chi moves. Liszt relied more on the fact that he was not used to the environment here, so he forcibly suppressed it. He is the soul imprint of the dragon knight, and he is holding a dragon spear instead of a big sword. Maybe he should have been riding a light green gemstone dragon? The first-generation dragon knight could ride a dragon, and the dragon knight inheritance needed to face the soul imprint of the dragon knight who rode a dragon, and naturally could not erase the soul imprint. But now, the soul imprint of the dragon knight did not have a dragon. Chapter 731. This chapter is for Great Master Lu. Liszt already had a plan on how to destroy Abraham Moonlight Silver's soul imprint. He took advantage of the time when his opponent needed to fiddle with the dragon spear because it was stuck in the bone to look at the smoke still lingering around his body. He thought for a moment and said, "Now is not a battle of dragon knights, but a sword battle without a dragon. It is the best time to destroy the soul imprint." As his eyes flickered, his will began to guide the smoke that belonged to the power of fate. Then, I want an invincible dragon tooth. Boom. The smoke continued to rush toward the big treasure sword. The fiery red sword suddenly changed shape, turning into a rough triangular sword. The fire attribute fighting energy on it became even stronger. Liszt did not know what a dragon tooth looked like. He had never seen it before, but he had seen how sharp Leo's teeth were. He could imagine what a divine weapon made of dragon teeth would look like. Thus, this fiery red dragon tooth was born. Feeling the great power of the dragon Fong divine weapon in his hand, the corners of his mouth curled into an elegant smile again. He looked at Abraham Moonlight Silver, who was holding his spear and attacking again. "You are just a dragon knight without a dragon, but although I don't have Leo to help me, I have more power." He raised the sword. He swung the sword. Slash. Poochie. The tip of the dragon's spear in Abraham Moonlight Silver's hand was directly cut off by the fiery red dragon tooth. Then, List swung the sword again and again, cutting the dragon's spear into countless pieces. Finally, he slashed at Abraham Moonlight Silver. A sword made of flames directly cut Abraham in half. Under the blessing of the power of fate, the imaginary dragon tooth was invincible. The soul imprint of the first-generation Dragon Knight was not enough. He passed over the bloody body that was broken in half. List held the flaming dragon tooth, and was about to slaughter the sleeping light green gem dragon. Suddenly, the two halves of the Dragon Knight's body on the ground quickly melted. Abraham Moonlight Silver's figure reappeared in front of him. He held the 5-meter-long dragon spear, and stabbed over without saying a word. Huh! List was shocked, but he did not panic. This was the spiritual world, and anything could happen. After dodging the other party's ferocious attacks and finding an opportunity to counterattack, the dragon-toothed divine weapon slashed a few times, chopping Abraham and the dragon's spear into pieces like chopping vegetables. He looked at the corpse at his feet. When he looked at the spot where the corpse was, there was nothing left. His brain spun rapidly. A soul imprint can be reborn infinitely in the mind world? As if to prove his imagination, the corpse in front of him quickly disappeared, and then Abraham Moonlight Silver appeared in front of him again. Without a word of nonsense. Thrusting the spear to kill. List's expression remained calm as he faced the seemingly infinite rebirth of the soul imprint. He muttered to himself, "I don't believe it. Walala." He shattered it with a few slashes. The corpse broke into several pieces and fell to the ground before quickly disappearing. A new Dragon Knight stood in front of him. But no matter how many times Abraham Moonlight Silver's soul imprint was reborn, List always had only one choice: to swing his sword and crush his opponent. After a few more slashes, Abraham's figure gradually began to fade. List also knew that his choice was correct. If I can't kill it with one slash, then I'll do it a few more times. I can even destroy an evil dragon's soul incarnation, let alone a dragon knight's soul imprint without a dragon. Walala. After being slashed to death 20 times in a row, Abraham Moonlight Silver's figure finally dimmed to the point where it was almost impossible to condense. List did not show any mercy. Although he felt a little tired, he still chose to rush up for the 21st time and slash Abraham to death. Boom! The dim figure shattered, and not even the corpse was left. He waited for a long time, but Abraham Moonlight Silver did not condense again. Phew! He understood that the soul imprint had been completely erased. List calmed his emotions and jumped directly onto the light green gem dragon's body. He stepped on the scales and walked all the way to the dragon's head. No more soul imprints came to stop him. He raised the dragon Fong divine weapon, which was already covered in cracks, and slashed down without hesitation. Poochie. Half of the dragon's head was cut open. The sleeping light green gem dragon seemed to feel pain, and its entire body began to twitch. The emerald under its feet also began to crack. The wine around it tumbled, and the bones continued to sink. The spiritual world seemed to be collapsing. But List was unmoved. He continued to raise his sword and slash, forcibly chopping off the huge dragon's head. Boom! The light green gem under its feet completely shattered, and the light green gem dragon also shattered. List's body could not stand steadily, and he also fell. But soon, he stepped on solid ground. When the surrounding shattered light green gems disappeared, and the dragon's corpse also disappeared, the entire spiritual world became new. A pure and flawless light green gem quietly floated in the sea of wine soaked in bones. On the gem, another sleeping light green gem appeared. The position of the Dragon Fang platform was exposed, as if it was waving at him. As if guided by the unseen, List directly walked over and rode the Dragon Fang platform in the spiritual world again. In an instant, the human and dragon's minds merged together. Moonlight, green shadow, thunder, spiral, stone break, forest, phantom. 7 powerful Dragon Knight attack moves constantly flashed in his mind, powerful and unstoppable. At some point, List had already exited the spiritual world of the light green gem dragon. When he looked at the unconscious light green gem dragon, he felt a wonderful spiritual connection between him and the dragon. At the same time, he was also carefully experiencing the reward of riding the dragon, the secret book of dragon fighting. When a Dragon Knight inherited the Dragon Fighting Secret Manual, he could receive the Dragon Fighting Secret Manual from the dragon. After killing the first-generation Dragon Knight's soul imprint, List also received the Dragon Fighting Secret Manual. This was the Dragon Fighting Secret Manual exclusive to the light green gem dragon. After several generations of Dragon Knight refinement, there were a total of 7 powerful moves, as well as many basic details. Although it could only be used with the light green gem dragon, many of the ways to operate the fighting could be learned from each other. Now that I have the Sapphire Dragon Knight Fighting Secret Manual and the Light Green Gem Dragon Knight Fighting Secret Manual, I can easily create a Fire Dragon Knight Fighting Secret Manual. After confirming that the dragon battle technique had been imprinted in his mind, List exhaled a mouthful of turbid air. Enduring the bursts of mental exhaustion, he left the Dragon Tooth platform. Now that the light green gem dragon belonged to him, once it recovered, he would be able to ride the light green gem dragon and fly in the sky, displaying his great strength. This was an adult dragon. After riding it for a few times, he would become a perfect dragon knight. However, suddenly Leo's angry roar came from his mind. Roar! He was questioning List's betrayal. He was seriously angry that List dared to ride another dragon. If there was no explanation, he would definitely go berserk. List already had a response. Leo, don't worry. I only intend to treat it as a dragon that produces resources. My true combat partner is only you. Although Leo had not grown up yet, the elemental dragon was destined to be the strongest dragon knight in the future. Moreover, it was his first dragon. Whether it was emotionally or intellectually, Leo was the best partner in his mind. Roar! I'll give you another 10 potions. Roar! Another 10. Roar! 30 roasted cows. Roar! Don't push your luck. If you are not satisfied, you will have nothing left. Chapter 732. He got a soul fruit, successfully rode the light green gem dragon, and pacified the little fire dragon Leo. This trip to the Heart Island was perfect. Achi told List that all the branches of the soul fruit tree had withered. He summoned the smoke mission, and it was finally completed. Mission completed. Reward: a light green gem mine. Indeed, one of the light green gem dragon and the soul fruit tree had to die to be considered a success. Now this Heart Island has probably started to transform into a light green gem mine. I wonder how many qualified gems and crystal mines can be mined. The gem dragon didn't produce gems like the invisible dragon, which spat out gems from its mouth. Instead, the gem dragon's aura would infect the earth veins and produce crystal mines. In the crystal mines, there would be some fully developed gems and a lot of defective gems. Light green crystals were the associated minerals of light green gems. With the amount of blood the light green gem dragon lost this time, it would not be a problem for it to infect the entire Heart Island. After all, normally gem dragons could infect the mines with their aura, but this time the light green gem dragon was infecting the mines with its life force. It was not easy. Take care of yourself, light green gem dragon. List felt the soul of the light green gem dragon that was still sleeping and sighed. I didn't expect that my family would have a mine. He got the resources to build a country just like that. Unfortunately, the location of the Heart Island was not good. It was too close to the mainland and the Grand Duchy of Sapphire. Fortunately, it was not on the sea route, or it would be extremely easy to expose his location. Now, there was not only a mine on the island but also a recovering dragon. He must not let the outside world find it. He sighed for a moment and paid attention to the new smoke mission. The light green gemstone dragon used its vitality to produce a mystic dragon's soul fruit and a light green gemstone mine. However, the magic that was leaked out also changed the environment of the Heart Island. The trees on the island may have quietly changed. Please pay close attention to the changes in these trees. Reward: a large area of mutated trees. Is it talking about this forest that looks like a tree fern? List looked around the small forest on the island. Because the light green gem dragon had fainted, a quarter of the forest had been destroyed. These trees did not have names yet. However, it was very similar to the ferns of the dinosaur era on Earth, the kind of tall, straight trunks plant with strange leaves. On Earth, ferns had gradually evolved from tall, woody plants to low, herbaceous plants. The only remaining woody fern was the national first-class protected plant, Cyathea fern. How about cyan fern? He liked to equate the plants in this world with the plants on Earth. Whenever they were similar, he would give them a name from Earth. Therefore, he quickly determined that the plants in this small forest were all called Cyathea ferns. While Achi was busy with her experiments, Link activated his Eye of Magic and kept an eye on the forest, paying attention to any changes in the cypress fern. Before the mission notification, he had no idea what the wood fern was used for. It did not bear fruit, nor was it a magic ingredient. Furthermore, its wood was not strong enough. But now that he was infected by the dragon's magic, there might be some magical changes that were worth looking forward to. Of course, List did not put all his energy on the Cyathea forest. He had to continue to help Achi with her experiments and think about the follow-up plans for the light green gem dragon and the Heart Island. The Heart Island must be protected, waiting for the development of the light green gem mine and the possible growth of the third heart fruit tree. The light green gem dragon must be protected. It was not safe to leave it here to recuperate. If the Eagle Kingdom launched a search, it was likely to be exposed. It was conceivable that the Eagle Kingdom would go crazy if the Dragon Knight died and the dragon was lost. The sea would definitely not be calm in the near future. It might even cause a war between the three kingdoms in the northeast corner of the legendary continent. The Dragon Knight's move could affect the whole. The death of Carl Lowe Violet, the birth of the Dragon Knight List, and the magic shooter Achi were all big events that could cause an earthquake. Of course, List was not afraid. He could run away even if he could not win against Achi. In this sea, Achi's speed was definitely the fastest. She could also help him dive into the deep sea. The only thing he needed to worry about was his family. Fortunately, he had been separated from his family. Although they were not separated, they were not close. Under normal circumstances, he would be regarded as a single individual. No one would vent their anger on his family. But no matter what, the light green gem dragon must be protected. We can't let it stay unconscious here. Otherwise, any bird in the world of Warcraft could eat it alive. Maybe we should transport the light green gem dragon to the Dodo Island and hide it instead of leaving it on the Heart Island. The Dodo Island was far away from the mainland and the Grand Duchy of Sapphire. The Eagle Kingdom would not notice such a small island no matter how they searched. They would not easily feel the aura of the light green gem dragon's radiation. It's decided then. When Achi is done with her experiments, let her help transport the light green gem dragon to the Dodo Island. Achi could control the waterspout, lift the light green gem dragon, and then run all the way to the Dodo Island. Otherwise, Leo wouldn't have been able to carry a dragon that weighed a few hundred tons. Also, there wasn't a ship that was big enough to transport a 45-meter-long adult dragon. Just the dragon's aura alone was enough to make the crew foam at the mouth. Night fell. There were no visible changes in the cypress forest. Achi was still busy with her experiment. Whether it was the dragon or the soul fruit tree, there were a lot of secrets waiting for her to crack. However, after a big meal, List directly interrupted Achi's experiment. Don't be busy with experiments at night. Work and rest is life. But Achi still has a lot of experiments to finish. Achi was reluctant to rest. But List insisted. Throw the unfinished experiment materials into the space ring. If you can't fit yours, put mine. Anyway, you are not allowed to do experiments at night. Go to bed early. He was always afraid of the sorcerers and did not want Achi to be crazy for the pursuit of truth. Recently, he vaguely found that Achi was too obsessed with magic, which was not a good sign. As a young siren, she must have the right values. Achi, however, said coquettishly, "But brother, Achi can't sleep without experiments." Then look at the stars. Come, let me teach you something new about how to observe the stars. It is said that there were astrologers in the Moon Empire. The calendar we use was left by the astrologers. I have a plan to rebuild the astrology system. Maybe you can help me with this idea. Achi nodded. Okay. At the beginning of the teaching, List tried to establish the foundation of astronomy with the little knowledge he learned from watching TV. The stars in the sky are divided into stars and planets. Most of the stars we see with our eyes are stars, but there are also planets among them. The position of stars in the sky is almost the same, but the position of planets in the sky is always changing. Observe their orbit and calculate with gravity. Then we can infer whether we are in a huge star system. However, Achi suddenly asked, "Then what is the use of knowing these planets?" Chapter 733. What was the point of studying the stars and astronomy? He knew that time, direction, and calendars depended on astronomical research. In other words, studying astronomy was good for historical records, and using calendars to summarize the solar terms was good for agriculture. But what was the point? List rubbed his chin and narrowed his eyes, thinking quickly, do I have to bring over the 12 zodiac signs and use them to study personality, fortune, and love? This kind of knowledge did not seem to be of much use other than to hook up with girls. But he quickly thought of a major use. He said to Achi seriously, "Don't think that studying astronomy is useless. In fact, astronomy is very likely to be of great use. I don't know if you still remember the legend of the Moon Empire. It is said that the Moon Empire had a teleportation circle that led to the moon. Do you think that without studying astronomy, such a teleportation circle could have been built?" Achi was indeed shocked. "Brother, you are right. Without astronomical guidance, humans would not have been able to reach the moon. Although I don't know if the teleportation circle of the Moon Empire is real or not, but if we live on a planet, the moon as a planet might also have life." "That's right." List nodded lightly. Even he believed his own words. Many legends had been proven to be true, so the teleportation circle of the Moon Empire might not be fake. If there really was a teleportation circle that could land on the moon, he would definitely step into the teleportation circle in the future and travel to the moon to see what the scenery was like. In fact, under Crazy's leadership, the Mage Tower in the territory had always been researching the communication magic circle, using the magic net as a foundation to exchange information. If the research on the communication circle was successful, perhaps on this basis, they could further research the teleportation circle that could send objects. Of course, the best way was to dig up some ruins and directly obtain the teleportation technology of the Moon Empire. When that happened, perhaps distance would no longer be a limit. In any case, the teaching of observing the stars had officially begun. Taking out the telescope, List showed Achi how to observe the celestial bodies. Ever since he invented the telescope, He had often used it to observe the sky, so he had experience. However, due to the limitations of the telescope itself, astronomical observation was more difficult. Moreover, determining the trajectory of the celestial bodies involved complicated calculations. He knew nothing about this. After all, he was bad at math. He could add, subtract, multiply, and divide, but not much else. Brother, since the telescope uses the principle of concave and convex mirrors, then can a chi directly control water to make a telescope? Well, it's not impossible, but simply stacking lenses isn't enough. We still need a lens tube to protect the light source. What about this? A chi waved her hand, and countless streams of water gathered in front of her. Then, the streams of water quickly formed a cylinder, and through some special arrangement, it became an opaque, pitch-black frosted surface. There were also two concave and convex mirrors formed by the streams of water, which were directly embedded in the mirror cylinder. And so a telescope was made. Brother, a chi's telescope can see the stars in the sky. Oh! Liszt was a little envious of a chi's ability to control water. Not bad, not bad. Now that you have grasped the specific principle, the next step is to try to adjust the thickness of the concave-convex mirror and the combination of the lens barrel and the objective lens to find the most suitable viewing magnification. At that moment, he quickly lost interest in teaching A Chi how to look at the stars and let A Chi carefully adjust the telescope she made with water. He himself lay on the body of the light green gemstone dragon, thinking about something. The secret book of dragon fighting, the light green gemstone mine, the mutated cypress tree, the surname and the name of the country, the material support, the change of the title, the reaction of the Eagle Kingdom, and countless other thoughts flashed in his mind. The night gradually deepened, and before he knew it, he had fallen asleep. The next day, before dawn, Liszt had already woken up. He found that a chi had crawled into his arms and slept intimately against him. Her petite body was a little cool, and the early winter frost condensed on his armor and a chi's magic cloak. Last night, he forgot to open the tent, and he didn't take out the calming bead. Fortunately, both he and a chi had a physique far beyond that of ordinary people, so this little bit of cold was nothing. A chi slept very lightly. When Liszt woke up, the subtle movements of his body had already awakened her. Stretching, she left Liszt's body, and after saying goodbye, she took out her toiletries to clean up. Liszt also turned over and jumped off the light green gemstone dragon. He washed his face, brushed his teeth, and did some simple cleaning. He then used the eye of magic to observe the cypress tree forest, and immediately found something strange. The entire cypress tree forest was filled with a light green glow, the same as the light green gemstone dragon's magic glow. But if he looked closely, he would find a slight difference. The light green gemstone dragon's magic glow was more solid, while the cypress tree forest's magic glow was fainter. He broke off a leaf and sensed it, and immediately found that the cypress tree's magic glow was low magic, different in nature from the light green gemstone dragon's high magic glow. So these cypress trees have become magic ingredients? If that was the case, it was a good harvest. The magic of a dragon could actually infect magic ingredients. But then he found that a few cypress trees with a more intense glow were the ones close to the light green gemstone dragon's body. The trunks, branches, and leaves of these cypress trees were actually showing signs of turning transparent. He peeled off a piece of bark and carefully played with it. Soon, he saw the changes. It seems that the cypress tree isn't transforming into a magic ingredient, but into a stone or crystal? Especially one of the cypress tree ferns, whose leaves had actually crystallized. Through the eye of magic's inspection, half of the leaves had become real crystals, while the rest were only partially crystallized, and magic was still slowly gathering. A chi, come take a look. Coming. A chi was also very surprised. Brother, these cypress trees have actually grown into crystals. Look at this leaf, It's no different from a crystal, List said directly. Carefully compare the crystal to the leaf and see what the difference is. Okay. After instructing Achi to compare, List continued to observe the entire cypress tree forest. Gradually, he found a sign. The cypress ferns closer to the light green gemstone dragon were more crystallized, and the thicker the trunk of the mature cypress ferns were, the more crystallized they were, and the mature leaves were the first to crystallize. It seems that after they mature, they start to crystallize, and the immature parts continue to grow. After an hour, he concluded that this forest of cypress ferns had mutated into crystal cypress ferns. Cypress ferns that could grow into crystals would directly crystallize when they matured. On the back of the crystallized leaves were rings of red ribbons, like the seeds of the cypress ferns. These seeds were not crystallized. On the contrary, with a wave of his hand, he could see many tiny seeds scattering into the air. Every tiny seed carried a faint, almost invisible magical glow as it scattered in all directions. He couldn't help but summon the smoke mission. Chapter 734. A tree fern that could grow into a crystal was undoubtedly a very strange mutation, but it was difficult to tell whether this mutation was good or bad. The reason was simple. It was a mutation that relied on the magic leaked by the light green sapphire dragon. In other words, the magic that should have formed a crystal mine underground was directly grown in the form of a tree fern. Both were crystals, and it was not clear which was of higher quality. In this case, the crystal tree fern was completely superfluous. I still need to experiment. I'll collect a batch of tree fern seeds now and transplant them to the territory to see if I can grow a crystal tree fern. If it can grow crystals without the magic of the dragon, then the crystal tree fern will be valuable. If it can't be separated from the dragon, then it will be worthless. List analyzed as he collected the seed. Achi nodded. Brother, the place where the dragon lives should emit magic every day. It takes too long to form a vein. Maybe the crystal tree fern can quickly convert the dragon's magic into crystals. That's a good idea. When I start building a dragon nest in the future, I'll have a variety of crystal tree ferns. He gently scraped the back of the crystal leaves with a knife, and the mature crystal tree fern seeds naturally fell off. He put them in a sealed leather bag and threw them into a space ring. They could be stored for a long time. After collecting seeds in this way for a while, and making sure that there were enough, List stopped. He didn't touch any of the crystal tree ferns for the time being. Instead, he summoned the little fire dragon, Leo. Leo, grab the light green sapphire dragon by its tail and throw it into the sea. Roar! Leo answered excitedly. He swooped down and accurately grabbed the thick tail of the light green sapphire dragon with his two hind claws. Then he flapped his wings and flew, dragging the sleeping body of the light green sapphire dragon up little by little. The whole process was very strenuous, but he was in high spirits. Leo was less than 100 tons, but the light green sapphire dragon was hundreds of tons. It was normal for him to be struggling. However, when the light green sapphire dragon was hung up, Leo suddenly let out a deafening roar, turned his body, and threw the light green sapphire dragon into the sea like a discus. Roar! Roar! Leo was getting more and more excited after being able to torture other dragons like this. If he worked harder, he might be able to directly release the power of infection in his bloodline and infect dragon-type creatures. Perhaps this would be a good way to induce Leo to infect dragon-type creatures in the future. The light green gemstone dragon that was thrown into the sea did not sink into the sea. Halfway through, Achi manipulated countless waterspouts to catch the behemoth. List flew into the sky and landed lightly on the light green gem dragon's back. Achi also leaped onto the dragon's back. Let's go to Dodo Island. We'll settle the light green gemstone dragon there. List gestured to Leo, who was still hovering in the sky. Come back! Roar! Leo rammed his head into List's chest. With Achi controlling the water, Even if he was dragging a dragon, his speed was not slow, and it was not too strenuous. The sea was Achi's home ground. As a magic shooter, a siren had unpredictable abilities. Achi, since you have such means, I think we should bring a big ship when we go out in the future. You can stand at the bow and control the ship. The ship doesn't need sails or sailors. It only needs servants to clean up, organize food, and manage supplies. This was the idea of a luxury cruise ship. With Achi's protection, not to mention that the storm could not destroy it, even if they encountered a subdragon sea monster, they would not necessarily have any trouble. The idea of a tanker quickly attracted Achi. Brother, can we build a magic laboratory on the ship and assign a few magic apprentices to take care of it? She was still obsessed with the research of magic and truth. She was addicted to experiments and could not extricate herself. Of course. Then Achi's future research will be much more convenient. Don't always think about research. You are still young, and so am I. We still have a lot of time to share. Enjoying life is the most important thing. While persuading Achi, List called out the smoke mission and continued to look at the new mission that had just been issued. Mission: the brilliance of the dragon-slaying war and the difficult choice of the mind fruit tree have consumed too much of your energy. Although your body is still strong, your spirit has long been exhausted. Why not relax and enjoy the cheers that an 18-year-old dragon knight should receive? Reward: a sprite worm. Oh! It has been a long time since I have seen such a familiar reward. It turned out to be a sprite worm. As my strength improved, the reward of the smoke mission became more and more generous. It gradually changed from sprites to dragons. I did not expect that today there would be another big turn, and I would return to a sprite worm. He vaguely felt that the reward of the smoke mission, in addition to the surrounding environment, was more related to the power of fate. As he continued to progress, the power of fate seemed to have begun to increase, and the threads of fate that could be pried became more and more violent. The fire dragon and the light emerald dragon successively fell under the calculations of the power of fate. Even the occasional sprite worm reward began to be rewarded with several, rather than just one. Could it be that when I erased the first-generation Dragon Knight's mind brand, I overconsumed the smoke, resulting in the weakening of the power of fate? At that time, when the smoke transformed into the Dragon Fang magic weapon continuously attacked the mind brand, its blade showed signs of collapse. So it is not my spirit that is exhausted, but the power of fate has weakened? List suddenly became a little nervous. The smoke mission was his greatest reliance. It could be said that the originally mediocre brain, talent, and courage of Earth overtime man could grow into an unprecedented genius from a different world by relying on the smoke mission. Without the smoke mission, he might still be a countryside baron who steadily developed the flower town. With the smoke mission, he rose step by step and became the new overlord of this blue sea. It seems that I have to be cautious in using the power of fate in the next mind battle. It was not easy to develop the smoke mission to the point where I can trap dragons, so I cannot fall back to the level of trapping sprite worms. List solemnly made a decision, but he did not dwell too much on it. He was now a dragon knight, a powerhouse standing at the pinnacle of power. He could move unhindered on the legendary continent without the need for the smoke mission. List did not return for the whole night. Oxhoof City was still bustling. Although the battle was over, the fleets of the great aristocrats who had not yet received the news were still converging on Oxhoof City. When they saw the sapphire dragon sleeping near Oxhoof City, all the aristocrats and knight who had arrived heard about the legendary battle between 4 Dragon Knight and an arch-wizard. The genius knight of the Tulip family had become a dragon knight and had an arch-wizard sister. List's son. His Highness List actually killed the Eagle Kingdom's Dragon Knight? Impressive. Unfortunately, I couldn't see it with my own eyes. Are you lying to me? A battle between 5 pinnacle powerhouses? Unbelievable! Chapter 735. Levis stood on the deck with a serious expression. According to List's instructions, the family fleet had assembled on the Coral Island for 2 days before setting off. The Eagle Kingdom was invading. The Tulip family's choice was to wait for the Grand Duke and the Bearhawk Kingdom to fight for a while, and then make subsequent plans. In any case, with List's Ghostblade inheritance, even if he surrendered to the Eagle Kingdom, he would still be valued. They were about to arrive at Cowhoof City. Perhaps the war between the two countries had already started, Cowhoof City had already fallen, and the Tulip family's choice had already begun. I don't know what Father and List's choice is, to stay in Sapphire, or to surrender to the Eagle Kingdom? He pondered, somewhat vexed. The vampire called Mary Dawn Daybreak had led the blood servants to Cowhoof City to investigate, and would soon bring back the news that would decide whether the fleet should continue to Cowhoof City. The process of waiting was torturous, especially since it was related to the future of the family and Levis's own future. Before leaving, his wife Relia Golden Wheatsway told him that he must listen to the decisions of his father and brother, and not to make his own decisions. This made him very unhappy. He was not happy with Relia's attitude, as if he was brainless. He was obviously 6 years older than List. Could it be that just because the other party was lucky enough to obtain the inheritance of an ancient warrior, it meant that the other party had a better view of the overall situation than him? He was also unhappy with the ambiguous attitude of Llywelyn and List regarding the position of the family. Because from the beginning, he did not want the family to choose to surrender to the Eagle Kingdom. He was reluctant to give up the status of Sapphire. In Sapphire, he was the heir of the Oxdale Marquis, the future Sir Marquis. Once he surrendered to the Eagle Kingdom, it would be difficult to keep his title. After all, the other party valued his younger brother List more. He was very jealous of List. Of the 4 siblings, he had always been a genius since he was a child. Even though the youngest Lytton later showed excellent aptitude, he was still a genius. No matter where he went, people would add the words, "Genius of the Coral Island," to address him. However, List, who had been unremarkable since he was a child and had nothing but his handsomeness, rose rapidly after the enfeoffment. He had become the brightest young noble in Sapphire City. From then on, only List could bear the title of Genius of Coral Island. It would be difficult for others to be called geniuses. On the contrary, others would always point fingers at him behind his back, as if Levis, who had yet to become a Sky Knight, was a good-for-nothing and a disgrace to the Tulip family. However, thinking of this, the corners of Levis's mouth suddenly curled up into a proud arc. When Father and List meet again, he will definitely be surprised. There was no other reason. He was no longer an elite Earth Knight, Levis, but an ordinary Sky Knight, Levis. During the voyage the day before yesterday, the chi in his body naturally boiled. After a while, it had become a high-grade water chi and could soar into the sky. Extending a hand, surging with high-grade chi, Levis's heart surged again. I'm afraid that Ralia did not expect that I would become a Sky Knight so quickly. She told me to talk less and be more obedient because I was not strong enough. Now that my strength has soared, who would dare to ignore my opinion? Just then, a black bat flew in the distance. Levis narrowed his eyes. Especially that Mary, she was very arrogant on the ship and directly ignored my good will. Wait for me to greet List and ask for Mary. Let's see if she can still be proud. Although List is very strong, he should give me, the Sky Knight, face. When he was still an Earth Knight, he knew that List would not respect him. Strength was the basis of his words. But now that he had become a Sky Knight, standing on the same level as List, he had more confidence in his words. Rustle. The bat came to the bow of the ship and suddenly turned into a tall female vampire. It was not Mary but Peggy. Under the cloak was an ordinary female face. Levis had no interest in this face, even if he had always wanted to taste the taste of a vampire. Sir Levis. Peggy hid in the shade of the sail. Vampires did not like the sun. Levis squinted his eyes and said, "How is the situation in Oxfoot City? The fleet can enter the city at any time. The Eagle Kingdom has been defeated and Sapphire has won a great victory." Peggy's voice was filled with boundless excitement. She was still a little dizzy. How did her master become a fire dragon knight and a magic shooter all of a sudden? She was about to organize her words and describe List's glorious deeds. But she heard Levis also say in an excited tone, "Haha, not bad, not bad. I knew the Eagle Kingdom was nothing to be afraid of. Who can compete with Sapphire on the sea?" "Sir is very right. No one can compete with Sapphire on the sea now," Peggy echoed. Of course. Levis felt a sense of pride. He didn't know what his father and Levis had been so hesitant and worried about before, but he was the one who had the foresight. "It's a pity that we're a step too late. The family's fleet should have set off as soon as possible to get a share of the glory." "Not too late, not too late." Levis was about to scold her with, "What do you know?" but Peggy had already said quickly, "Sapphire can achieve such a glorious victory under the glory of Sir List. It doesn't matter if the Tulip family's fleet comes or not. Sir List and Sir H.E. are enough." This flattery. Levis felt nauseous. This group of seemingly arrogant vampires were just a group of flattering clowns. In order to flatter, they even changed the glory of the night to the glory of Sir List, as if Sapphire's victory was all due to List's ability. However, the more Peggy spoke, the faster she felt. At the same time, congratulations, Sir Levis. You and Sir List have the same bloodline. It is really enviable. From now on, you are no longer an ordinary Sky Knight, because behind you stands Sir List, the Dragon Knight. No, 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 it is His Highness List. Whoosh! It was like a bolt of lightning piercing through the clear sky. Levis forcibly swallowed the words he was about to scold. His eyes widened, and after a full 5 seconds he said, "What did you say? Say it again." Peggy knew that Levis was shocked by the Dragon Knight, because when she heard the news, she almost peed in her pants. She immediately explained excitedly. The Eagle Kingdom dispatched 2 Dragon Knight to attack Sapphire. Sapphire Grand Duke was about to be killed. His Highness List rode a fire dragon into the sky, and His Highness Achilles assisted with magic. With a pious expression on her face, she said like a fanatic, "In the end, His Highness List killed the Dragon Knight Carl Low Violet, scared away the Dragon Knight Alonso Cyclamen, rescued the Dragon Knight Andrew Sapphire, and became the new overlord of the sea." Gulp. Levis swallowed a mouthful of saliva and said with difficulty, "Is what you said true?" Peggy nodded heavily. "Absolutely, the whole Oxfoot City is cheering for His Highness List." Levis first hurriedly twice. After a moment, the expression on his face gradually changed from stiff to tangled, and finally into ecstasy. He laughed loudly. "Ha ha 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 ha, Dragon Knight! My dearest brother is the Dragon Knight. I am the brother of the Dragon Knight." He laughed for a full quarter of an hour until the whole ship was boiling, and countless cheers of Dragon Knight sounded. Chapter 736. This chapter is Xiaoruizi's kitchen. He still stood at the bow with his head held high, but his mood was completely different. Previously, Levis was full of resentment and infinite arrogance. His promotion to Sky Knight made him full of lofty aspirations and forgot the fear when List dominated him. Of course, he had never seen how List dominated those Sky Knights. Whether it was the actual battle between father and son, or against Marquis Wildwave, he had only heard about it. He did not know what was so great about the Ghostblade inheritance. He felt that he had become the #1 figure and the elder brother, and List was just the younger brother. But the news brought by Peggy Dawn instantly shattered his confidence. The so-called Sky Knight's confidence, compared with the deeply rooted power of the Dragon Knight, was so pathetic that it made him feel ridiculous. Compared with the Ghostblade inheritance that he had never seen, the Dragon Knight was more shocking. The Dragon Knight. Even though he had seen the port of Oxfoot Island where many ships were docked, Levis still could not calm down. His embarrassment only stayed in his mind for a few seconds before it was replaced by excitement and thrill. So what if he had the right to speak before? Now he had become the brother of the Dragon Knight. The Grand Duchy of Sapphire can do whatever I want. No one should have any objections, haha. This was another kind of arrogance, but Levis felt happier than when he was promoted to Sky Knight. When the ship docked and saw Viscount Jonas and other acquaintances who came to pick up the ship, Levis regained his calmness. Although he had great ambition but little talent, he had learned how to hide his true side and put on the most standard aristocratic disguise. Viscount Jonas. Sir Levis. After the polite greeting, he could not wait to ask, "Is the Battle of Dragon Slaying real?" Of course. As a follower of the Tulip family, he could naturally share the glory brought by the Dragon Knight. His Highness List's name has resounded throughout the sea. Do you see the sapphire dragon lying over there? If His Highness hadn't taken action, I'm afraid it would have died. The sapphire dragon was too tired and heavily injured. It had no choice but to sleep and rest near the port of Oxhoof City so that it could gather its strength to return to the dragon nest on Blue Dragon Island. Because of the sapphire dragon, the Grand Duke also stayed here. Dragon Knight. Levis looked at the sapphire dragon and suddenly thought of List's fire dragon. Where is the fire dragon? Where did List raise it? Raise the fire dragon in your body. In his body? We all saw that the fire dragon could turn into a ball of fire and enter His Highness List's body. Perhaps this is the strength of the elemental dragon. There's such a thing. Levis expressed his disbelief. He could not wait to see List, but List was not in Oxhoof City. He could only, disappointedly, stay in Oxhoof City and wait. He quickly integrated into the aristocratic society of Oxhoof City as the brother of the Dragon Knight, basking in the glory brought by the Dragon Knight. At the same time, List and Achi had arrived at the Dodo Island. Leo plunged directly into the crater of the volcano to enjoy the volcano's supreme magic he had condensed during this time. He also divided the area of influence. No dragon was allowed to set foot on the Dodo Island from halfway up the volcano. That was his territory, and there was no room for negotiation. It was not worthwhile to argue with Leo in this regard. List just settled the light green gem dragon on the flat shore of the island. He did not know how long it would take for the light green gem dragon to recover. He could only wait slowly, visit it occasionally and feed it a batch of magic potions. After doing all this, he trained with Leo in the crater for half a day. Only then did he set off to return to Oxhoof Island, join his family, and then return to Coral Island to accept the mission. An 18-year-old Dragon Knight should receive cheers. I don't know why the Smoke Mission issued such a mission. I am usually a very low-key person and have no intention of deliberately showing off. So when he was about to return to the port of Iron Hoof Island, because Achi did not want to stay in the crowded castle, she stayed on the sunset that came with the fleet and read alone. He naturally summoned the little fire dragon Leo and rode him slowly to the port. Finally, under the admiring eyes of countless knights, he landed in front of the nameless castle where he was temporarily staying. He saw some familiar faces: Levis, Trick, Mary, Peggy, and so on. The Tulip family's orders of chivalry arrived as planned. Of course, the Black Horse Island's orders of chivalry were also there. There were not many of them. List, who had long decided to watch from the sidelines, did not let Yevich and the others follow him. Instead, Commander Marcus and more than 60 Earth Knights were mixed among the Coral Island's orders of chivalry. Your Highness List! Your Highness List! The family's knight cheered. These were cries from the bottom of their hearts. From now on, they were no longer ordinary knight, but knight followers of the Dragon Knight. Marquis Oxdale was discussing matters with the Grand Duke in Oxhoof Castle, so the nameless castle was temporarily led by Levis. The Sky Knight, who had just adjusted his mentality, was trying to make himself look normal, but when he felt the dragon's might and List's imposing manner at close range, his legs almost trembled. "Leo, come back!" List stretched out his hand and snapped his fingers. Leo suddenly turned into a ball of flame, and under the surprised and fearful gazes of the many new knight, he merged into List's body. Except for a few sparks that had not yet dissipated, there was no trace of the dragon. Leo's might also quickly dissipated, and the atmosphere of being strangled quickly returned to normal. List did not like to use means to release the might of the dragon, because releasing the might of the dragon did not have much meaning except for the scene. The dragon-slaying battle had already established enough majesty, so there was no need to pretend to be profound and use the might of the dragon to bait people like the Grand Duke did. List. Levis took a step forward, too excited to speak. It was not until the moment List landed on the dragon that he was completely relieved. The Tulip family really had a dragon knight. Mary, Marcus, and the others almost lost their balance. As a captured vampire, the bronze dragon knight Alonso was a shadow that Mary could not get rid of. Although she had never seen him, he was still a knight who had betrayed the dragon. She often dreamed that she was found by the Black Knight family and faced the cruelest punishment, shivering in fear. But now, her master was also a dragon knight, and he was the fire dragon knight who defeated Alonso. He also had the help of a magic shooter. Therefore, the mountain that had been pressing on Alonso's heart collapsed. Her whole body relaxed, and she wanted to fly, but she restrained herself and hid behind the crowd. This was not the place for a blood servant. They were List's eyes in the dark, used to search for prey, not a few flying bats exposed to the light. She only muttered in her heart, "It is Mary's honor to be Prince List's eyes." List did not care about the psychological activities of others at all. He had long been used to being the center of attention with every move he made. "Brother, you are here. Let's go to the hall to talk." After a simple greeting, he walked into the castle with Levis. At the same time, he did not forget to instruct, other than Viscount Jonas, Viscount Trick, and Captain Marcus, everyone else can go do their own things. There is no need to crowd in the castle. Chapter 737. There was no fun in chatting with his brother Levis. Even if he was complimenting himself all the way, List still felt bored. So after a simple chat about the joy of riding a dragon, he went into the study and went about his own business. Marcus and Mary followed him into the study. "Captain Marcus, I expect that a large number of Sapphire Knight will soon want to join the Black Horse Island Orders of Chivalry. I will leave this to you. Don't want a knight with bad conduct, a knight with mediocre talent, and an older knight. In short, choosing a knight requires both moral and talent," List said. Since he revealed his identity as a dragon knight and Achi revealed her identity as a magic shooter, it could be said that the founding of a nation was imperative. The second son of a noble and a civilian knight who could not progress in Sapphire would certainly see List as the greatest opportunity and want to become a veteran of a new country. But List was not a hungry lord, and any knight could become his follower. Better to have nothing than to have something shoddy. Anyway, I don't plan to build a nation in the short term. It's easier to gain loyalty by training a knight ourselves. Marcus replied in a deep voice, "Please rest assured, Your Highness, Marcus will guard the knight selection checkpoint and select a knight who meets the standards you set." Although his expression seemed calm, his eyes were burning with excitement like fire, burning since he was still on the ship. A huge sense of unreality had always enveloped him. It was unimaginable that he had been a tutor to the Dragon Knight. And now his identity was the confidant of the Dragon Knight and the head of the Black Horse Island Orders of Chivalry. Perhaps one day the orders of chivalry would grow and the country would begin to build, and he would not be able to keep up with the great Dragon Knight, but he believed that his relationship with Liszt would benefit him for life. For the time being, it was only the title of Lord Knight, but the future would never stop there. There is one more thing. Liszt thought of something again. With the magic shooters by my side, there will definitely be a large number of mages pouring into the territory in the future. Chris is not good at organization management. I hope you can work with Chris, Paris, Charles, and Mary to come up with a unified management plan as soon as possible. Just like how a Dragon Knight could attract a large number of knight followers, a magic shooter would naturally be the faith of a mage. It's not just the sapphire magicians who want to make a pilgrimage to a chi. After the news spreads, the Iron and Steel Ridge Kingdom, the Eagle Kingdom, and even more distant kingdoms should have magicians coming to make a pilgrimage. Liszt did not like the stubborn side of magicians, but it was not impossible to make use of magicians. Anyway, with his and Achi's strength, if a magician dared to violate the territory's laws, they could directly obliterate him. The only thing they had to guard against was a dragon-slaying incident like the goat gathering. Therefore, it was very important to introduce unified management and strengthen the surveillance of magicians. After talking about the magicians, Liszt left Mary alone and began to talk about the vampires. Alonso has fled, and I don't know if those vampires are hiding. In any case, they are a disaster in Sapphire. Mary, you have to find them as soon as possible and inform me. Mary nodded. Your Highness, rest assured, the blood servants will never let the Black Knight family vampires escape from Sapphire. Night. The banquet was held in Oxhoof Castle. After the arrival of the Orders of Chivalry from the remote Coral Island, basically all the Orders of Chivalry of Sapphire's great nobles had arrived, and the scale of the banquet reached an unprecedented height. At the Grand Duke's table, in addition to Liszt and Achi, the 7 marquises or the heirs of the marquises were allowed to attend. From Red Crab Island came Messiro Longtaro, from Deep Throat Island came Warner Pineapple, the eldest son of Marquis Wallace, from Golden Island came Marquis Roderick Golden Wheat, from Red Maple City came Marquis Grindenton Red Maple Leaf, from Leather Island came Marquis Ramirez White Glutinous Rice. Together with Marquis Nesta Magnolia of Quicksand City, Marquis Oxdale Lee William Tulip, and eldest Prince Anthony, a total of 11 people were talking and laughing. If it weren't for His Highness Liszt's help, Sapphire's battle situation would have deteriorated. Your Highness, please accept my respect. Anthony raised his cup in a toast. The eldest prince's attitude changed very calmly. At the celebration banquet of Marquis Oxdale, he had the air of a lord everywhere and looked at Liszt as if he was looking at his own follower. Not long after, he needed to look at Liszt with admiration and no longer dared to put on any airs. The title of Your Highness was also changed to Liszt. Eldest Prince, you are too polite. The sea is not a place where the Eagle Kingdom should intervene. Sapphire is also my hometown, so it is only right that I take action. Liszt smiled and raised his cup. Anthony suddenly smiled and said, Your Highness Liszt, you can just call me Anthony. Liszt readily accepted the good advice and said, Yes, Anthony. He really did not want to call the other party eldest prince. He was clearly the son of a duke. It was a bit funny to have to deceive himself and come up with titles such as prince and princess in a rural island country like Sapphire. Of course, the nobles were thick-skinned, and other duchies basically did the same. After all, duchies were also countries. The Grand Duke sat in the main seat and watched his eldest son socialize enthusiastically with the marquises and Liszt. He felt a little comforted in his heart. In any case, Sapphire had a qualified heir. He quietly gave his brother-in-law Nesta a look, and Nesta understood. He raised his cup and said in a clear voice, This cup celebrates Sapphire's victory. May the glory of the night always bless Sapphire and everyone present. Everyone raised their cups together. After drinking, Nesta raised his cup again and said, "This cup celebrates His Highness Liszt and His Excellency Achilles Rhodes for turning the tide and becoming famous in the sea." Liszt raised his cup again and accepted everyone's salute. He was no longer a political novice, and he probably knew that the Grand Duke was just hinting to Nesta to flatter him and put him in a higher position, so that he would not easily have any ideas about Sapphire. Sapphire's strength was now extremely weak, and could not withstand Liszt's challenge. Especially when the Sapphire Dragon was unconscious, it was almost at the mercy of others. Of course, it could not be ruled out that the Grand Duke was pretending again, and the Sapphire Dragon might just be pretending to sleep. After all, this kind of thing happened once, naturally there would be a second and third time. In this way, the dinner ended in a harmonious and lively atmosphere. However, the crowd did not disperse. The Grand Duke took advantage of the gathering and announced, "His Excellency Liszt has become a Dragon Knight and has decided to establish a country at the right time. I have also decided that Sapphire will fully support His Excellency Liszt in establishing a country. So in the preparatory stage, His Excellency Liszt needs a suitable identity." Liszt smiled and said nothing. He was happy to see the Grand Duke promote him. At least before the country was established, he did need a higher noble identity, a marquis. In the Eagle Kingdom, all Dragon Knights started as a marquis. Chapter 738. Although it was said to discuss Liszt's new identity, in fact, the Grand Duke had already prepared a plan. The Iron Hoof City and the Coral Island would be unified into a new territory, which would be Liszt's marquis fief, to pass this period of preparation for the establishment of a state. Liszt accepted the Grand Duke's good intentions. The Grand Duke, the Grand Prince, and the others were secretly relieved. They were now afraid that Liszt's appetite would be too big and difficult to satisfy. Therefore, the Grand Duke said with a smile, "Your Excellency Liszt, please give this territory a new name. I will immediately arrange for the court to prepare for your title." Even though it was an excessive territory, Liszt still seriously pondered for a moment before replying, "Let's call it the Flame Territory." He was a Fire Dragon Knight. The Fire Dragon was the incarnation of the flame. The territory was symbolized by the Fire Dragon and was called the Flame Territory, constantly reminding others that this was the territory of the Fire Dragon Knight. "Very well, I will confer upon you the title of Marquis of the Flame, and you will enjoy absolute jurisdiction over the territory." The Grand Duke waved his hand and decided. The Marquis of the Flame was nominally a subnoble of Sapphire, but in fact, Liszt would sign an offensive and defensive alliance contract with the Grand Duke, and the two would have an equal relationship. After the title was decided, the greater aristocrats came forward to congratulate him. "The Tulip family has 2 marquises, congratulations! Marquis of the Flame and Marquis of the Oxdale, congratulations! The knight is blessed by glory, the Tulip family is destined to prosper forever." Liszt smiled and thanked them one by one. He did not show too much arrogance. He had always been a gentle person. Perhaps aristocrats were divided into 3, 5, and 9 classes because of their status, but in his eyes, aristocrats and commoners were equally equal. They were all just ants, so what was the difference? All under the Dragon Knight were ants. Liszt had been very inflated these days. Great power often went to one's head. For example, when Levis was promoted to a Sky Knight, he was very inflated and proud. If Liszt's Dragon Knight identity had not poured cold water on him, who knew how insolent he would be now? However, no one could pour cold water on Liszt. He needed time to calm down. Fortunately, the 3 views of an adult's soul allowed him to have enough self-control to overcome his inflated ego. With no time to waste with the nobles, Liszt spoke to Oxdale the moment he returned to the nameless castle. "Father, I'll need your help with the promotion of the Flame Dominion's title and the material assistance negotiations with the Grand Duke." William said calmly, "Don't worry, I'm here." Then I'll have to trouble you, father. You are the pride of the tulip family. Focus on your training as a dragon knight and increase your strength. Leave the other miscellaneous matters to me. I will definitely fight for the greatest benefits for you. Yes. It had to be said that with the help of his family, Liszt felt much more relaxed. Even though he had become a dragon knight, he still needed someone he could trust to help him build his family business. Now he had 2 dragons to raise, especially the light green gemstone dragon, which he needed to recuperate. He was afraid that the resources he needed would be astronomical. The light green gemstone mine was not fully developed yet, and he had to wait for another 2 years to mine it. He had to wait for the impact of the dragon-slaying war to pass. So he had to think of another way. He asked his brother Levis to call his uncle Messiro over, and the family had a short meeting. Father, uncle, I need to raise dragons. There is a huge shortage of resources, and I can't raise dragons with the entire country's resources. Dragons can't give back a lot of resources, so I need to do business to accumulate resources. For this, William and Messiro knew that Leo was an elemental dragon, not a gemstone dragon or a metal dragon. Liszt, if there is a need, the Taro family will be your strong support, and I can provide some resources to support you, Messiro said on the spot. Thank you for your kind intentions, uncle, but there is no need for that for now. I have a few ways to earn money. White paper and glass are both highly profitable industries. I plan to expand the scale of production and use the Tulip family and the Taro family's channels to sell them to the continent. That's no problem. I believe the nobles of the continent can't resist the benefits of white paper and glass. In addition to white paper and glass, I am also exploring other profiteering industries. Basically, there are perfume, porcelain, and sea salt. Sea salt? Messiro raised his eyebrows and asked. Yes, seawater contains salt and requires special technology to extract it. I have basically mastered it and can mass-produce high-quality sea salt, which is higher quality than well salt and pond salt. Liszt said proudly. Even in archipelago countries, Sapphire was still relatively short of salt. Because most of the salt at present was mineral salt, pond salt, well salt, and other land-produced salt, people still did not know to ask for it from the sea. There was a salt mine on Coral Island, so there was no shortage of salt. Therefore, Liszt did not pay attention to this aspect before. When the territory started, he began to study seawater salt. In fact, the technology was very simple. With the cooperation of magicians, edible sea salt was soon produced. The seaside of Black Horse Island was not very suitable for salt drying, so it could not be promoted. However, the Oxdale territory of the Oxdale Marquis had many flat, sunny seashores suitable for opening up salt pans. Red Crab Island would naturally have suitable salt pans. Once high-quality sea salt was produced, it would quickly impact the mainland's salt market and bring huge profits to Liszt. It must be known that the ancient salt merchants of China were all prominent tycoons. Even when the emperor came to Jiangnan, he would be warmly received by these big salt merchants. The huge profits of the salt industry can be seen. Robbery is far less profitable than doing business. According to Liszt's estimation, if seawater was dried and sold on a large scale, the profits generated from monopolizing the salt market in the coastal area of the Steel and Iron Ridge Kingdom would be comparable to the annual revenue of the Grand Duchy of Sapphire. Of course, the Steel and Iron Ridge Kingdom may not open the salt market to Liszt. It is more likely to cooperate with the great nobles of the kingdom. In any case, white paper, glass, porcelain, perfume, sea salt, and so on, there is no end to the money. Even if the technology is exposed in a few years, Liszt estimates that he should have developed himself. At that time, who dares to block his way to make money, he will directly ride 3 or 5 dragons to their door. He was very confident in his heart. With the Smoke Mission's method of trapping dragons, after a few years, It should not be difficult for me to ride 3 or 5 dragons. After all, he has already ridden 2 dragons, and there are still 3 dragon soul fruits in reserve. The production of sea salt made Lee William and Messiro see the golden future, so their enthusiasm soared. Even Levis asked, List, if Relia and I can borrow the channels of the Golden Wheat family, can we also join your trade plan? If the channels are in the hands of you husband and wife, and not secretly controlled by the Golden Wheat family, I don't mind making money with you, brother. The mainland market is huge, and there is no need to worry about too many people sharing the cake. Anyway, no matter who participates in the trade plan, the position is only an agent. In essence, it is to make money for Liszt, and all the ownership of the technology is in his hands. Even if the Grand Duke wants to get involved in the future, Liszt would welcome it. Chapter 739. This chapter is Book Friend 20180919064605873. Thank you for updating it. After pushing all the complicated social matters to the Oxdale Marquis, Liszt planned to go to Hart Island to take a look at the crystal Cyathea and the huge pit that had been filled. But something unexpected happened. Mary Dawn Daybreak, who had just been investigating the vampires, quickly reported to him, Your Highness, we've found traces of the Dark Knight family's vampires. There are about 2 purebloods and 5 mixed bloods lurking in a small city near Cowhoof City. They didn't run and even dared to spy on Cowhoof City. Don't they know I'm here? Liszt narrowed his eyes. Maybe they don't know about the connection between you and the Black Knight family, Your Highness. They don't know that Tubert is already dead. I successfully triggered a response from the vampires of the Black Knight family by mimicking Tubert's blood magic. Tell me where they are now. Yes, Your Highness. Liszt was a swift and decisive person. He had just learned the location of the Black Knight clan's vampires from Mary. Half an hour later, he had already brought a chi to where the vampires were hiding. It was a small city with a population of less than 5,000. The hybrids were scattered all over the city, but the pure bloods were gathered together. It's here. I just released blood magic and they responded, Mary pointed. The city was very dirty and the streets were even dirtier. Liszt had to wear a mask in order to barely breathe. Achi, you stay outside. If you sense someone transforming into a bat and trying to escape, kill them directly. I'll go in and have a chat with the 2 purebloods. It's best if we can avoid the trouble of fighting. But this idea didn't come to fruition. When they saw Mary and Liszt behind her, the 2 purebloods turned into bats and fled out of the house. Obviously, they recognized Liszt, the newly risen Dragon Knight. But it was too late to escape. Liszt released his dragons, fighting Aura, and destroyed all the bat. In the end, the 2 purebloods fell to the ground, heavily injured and dying. After asking Mary to dig out their hearts, he began to interrogate them. Name. The 2 of them wanted to resist, but their hearts were being squeezed. Between life and death, they chose to live. Your Highness Liszt, I am Horos Black Knight. I am Pluto Black Knight. What about the other Black Knight vampires? Liszt had heard Mary mention the 2 of them before. They were both foreign purebloods who were transformed from human potential mages. The vampires of the family have already retreated from Sapphire, leaving only the 2 of us to keep a close eye on what is happening here. Tell me what you know about the invasion of the Eagle Kingdom. We don't know much. The Black Knight family is just His Highness Alonso's vampiric servants, responsible for gathering information. However, the invasion of Sapphire is a plan that His Highness Alonso has been planning for many years. Our original mission was to cooperate with the kingdom's orders of chivalry to complete the cleanup of Blue Dragon Island. Obviously, Alonso was planning to wipe out the Sapphire family in one fell swoop after winning the dragon-slaying battle. Unfortunately, it was the Eagle Kingdom that suffered a crushing defeat. Seeing that the situation was not good, the vampires quickly slipped away, leaving only Horos and Pluto to monitor Cowhoof City. However, the two of them were a little timid and did not dare to easily appear in Cowhoof City. After all, the Grand Duke and the Sapphire Dragon were still stationed in Cowhoof City. They could not get anything out of them. List waved his hand. Mary, I'll leave these two to you. As for the hearts of the 5 mixed bloods, you will also take care of them. Mary unconsciously licked her lip. With the growth of the blood servants, her power would inevitably grow as well. This made her excited. Your Highness, please rest assured that Mary will manage the blood servants properly. There is no Black Knight family here, only Dawn and Dawn. Mary was a woman with means, and her strength had also increased to that of a pureblood. He believed that she could tame Horos and Pluto. If she really could not tame them, at worst, he would just kill the 2 purebloods and use their hearts to breed new pureblood. As long as he had the heart of a vampire, he was not afraid of the vampire betrayal. Of course, if he really encountered an external force that he could not resist, no means could guarantee loyalty. What he had to do was to guarantee Mary's loyalty, and through Mary, guarantee the loyalty of the other vampires. This was probably what Alonso was doing. With the loyalty of the patriarch of the Black Knight family, the other vampires were free to do whatever they wanted. In any case, low-level vampires were cannon fodder. Death or capture was not a big loss. At worst, he could just breed them again. By the way, Mary, I have something for you to deal with. Please instruct me, Your Highness. I have the address of the Eagle Kingdom here, Burning Mountain. Send a blood servant to the Eagle Kingdom and draw out the specific location of Burning Mountain. In addition, ask the residents around Burning Mountain about the legend of the Wyvern Phoenix. Be careful and don't expose your identity and intentions at will. Rest assured, Your Highness. Mary will immediately arrange for the blood servant to carry out the task. Regarding the defeat of the Eagle Kingdom in this dragon-slaying battle, don't forget to find out the reaction of all parties. The more detailed, the better. If there is any important news, immediately send it back. Yes, Your Highness. The plan to conquer the Wyvern and Phoenix at Burning Mountain was a big matter that List was bound to win. After all, he had seen many dragons in his life, but he had never seen a wyvern. He had not even seen a super World of Warcraft or a high-level dragon beast. He really wanted to know if the wyvern had the bloodline of World of Warcraft. Logically speaking, dragons could infect small beasts and World of Warcraft. However, the wyvern was very strong. Even if it could not defeat the dragon, it would not be easily infected by the dragon. Moreover, high-level World of Warcraft would run away when they saw the dragon. Why would they stay and let the dragon infect them? Perhaps these doubts could be solved after capturing the possible existence of the Wyvern and Phoenix. At the very least, the fire attribute Wyvern and Phoenix could also give him and Leo a big supplement. Back then, Leo, who was still a fire seed, relied on devouring the magic power of the phoenix feather to successfully hatch into the magic form of the little fire dragon. There were not many changes on the Island of Souls. The light emerald mine was still being nurtured, and the crystal cyathea was still growing. So far, no crystal cyathea had grown into a true pure crystal tree. There were also no signs of germination in the big pit that had been filled with soil. Of course, only 2 days had passed, so naturally, nothing could be seen. When he returned to Cowhoof City from the Island of Souls, he was surprised to find that the Sapphire Dragon had woken up. The Grand Duke was preparing to dismiss the Orders of Chivalry and announce the end of the war. The Tulip family's Orders of Chivalry and the fleet were also ready to return to Coral Island. Thus, the last banquet came to an end. Early the next morning, the fleet that crowded the port of Cowhoof City left one after another. List did not ride a dragon or a seashell. Instead, he and Achi quietly stayed on the sunset. Sailing with the wind, they enjoyed a rare 4 days of drifting on the sea. During these 4 days, Achi would disappear for a few hours. She would go to the Island of Souls to observe and record the growth of the crystal cyathea, or to the Fairy Island to record the condition of the light emerald stone dragon. Liszt, on the other hand, calmly read the secretary's note. Occasionally, he would summon the little fire dragon Leo and fly into the clouds to cultivate for a while. He was summarizing the secret technique of the fire dragon knight's dragon chi. During the 4-day voyage, he successfully researched the first move of the fire dragon knight, dragon chi's secret technique. This move, which he named Dragon Slash, made use of Leo's quick turn while flying at high speed and the dragon's spear to draw a slashing trajectory. Dragon Slash! In the clouds, Leo swiftly turned around. Liszt took advantage of this opportunity to brandish Thunder Fury. The tip of the spear condensed with berserk dragon chi and drew a fiery red crescent moon. The crescent moon moved at high speed in the clouds. When it came into contact with the water vapor, it made crackling noises similar to thunder and lightning. It flew for more than 200 meters before slowly dissipating. Chapter 740. The great offensive power of the Dragon Slash greatly improved Liszt's strength. This was just one of the countless inspirations in his mind. There were still many powerful offensive and defensive ideas brewing. Unknowingly, 4 days had passed. The Coral Island was in sight. Drops of rain began to fall from the overcast sky. Without an umbrella, Liszt and Lee Williams stood side by side at the bow of the ship. The father and son chatted in the drizzle. "We are almost home." Lee Williams suddenly felt a lot of emotions. He shook his head and sighed. "I originally thought that the title of Marquis was the pinnacle of my life. I didn't expect you to bring me so many surprises, making the family rise from a great aristocrat to a dragon-raising family. How glorious!" Liszt said as if it was a matter of course. "The dragon-raising family is just the beginning. More glory is yet to come." Seeing Liszt's attitude, Lee William laughed involuntarily. "Your development has been too smooth, that's why you don't feel the nobility of a dragon-raising family. Going from a serf family to a commoner family is a huge hurdle. Going from a commoner family to a minor aristocrat is even more of a moat. Going from a minor aristocrat to a greater aristocrat was yet another huge chasm. These hurdles that needed to be crossed were enough to stop 99% of the people in this world. Only the lucky one in 10,000 could enjoy the glory and nobility of a greater aristocrat. However, none of this could compare to the disparity between a greater aristocrat and a dragon-raising family. There were countless greater aristocrats in this world, but the number of dragon-raising families didn't exceed 200. Take the Grand Duchy of Sapphire, for example. Over the past 150 years, great aristocrats had risen and fallen, but the only dragon-raising family was the Sapphire family. If not for your unexpected rise, perhaps the Sapphire dragon would have aged and the Sapphire family would have declined, and a second dragon-raising family would not have been born. The more Lee Williams spoke, the more he felt it was unreal. He couldn't imagine how many Knight Glory's blessings were needed for a dragon knight and a magic shooter to be born in the Tulip family. As a commoner family in the early days of the founding of the nation, their ancestors narrowly escaped death on the battlefield and barely became a minor aristocrat. Their descendants spent more than 100 years to barely become a greater aristocrat. In the blink of an eye, they became a dragon-raising family. "Father, you have to adapt as soon as possible. The family will be very busy in the future." "I know." William Lee was just hypocritically sighing with emotion. In fact, he was very proud of himself. "We will soon reach the port. Do you want to summon Leo and let the people of the Coral Island experience the inconceivable might of the fire dragon?" Liszt shook his head. "This is too deliberate and not steady enough. When we return to Tulip Castle, I'll summon Leo and let my family meet him." William Lee coughed and didn't know what to say. Every time they returned to the port of Oxfoot Island, Liszt would ride on Leo to show off his imposing manner. Why didn't he say that it was too deliberate? Why did he end up with such a result when he helped him come up with a plan? Preposterous. However, since Liszt didn't want to show off, he couldn't force him either. The conversation between father and son fell into an awkward silence. After a while, at this moment, the Coral City's port could be described as a sea of people. In addition to the knights stationed on the Coral Island, there were also a large number of civilians. They all stretched their heads out, looking forward to the return of the Dragon Knight. Almost no one here had ever seen a dragon, so they were all eager to see a dragon. Later, when facing their children and grandchildren, they would have something to talk about. Besides, they could also meet an archwizard. For the commoners, the archwizard title was far inferior to the Dragon Knight, because the commoners only knew that the knight was the ruler. Unfortunately, today Liszt wasn't interested in showing off. He calmly followed orders of chivalry to the port, and then quickly entered the family's carriage. Under the escort of orders of chivalry, he headed for Tulip Castle. When he arrived at the fork in the road between Coral City and Tulip Castle, he saw Madame Penelope and the others standing in the rain, looking forward. He was somewhat absent-minded. This was his fourth triumphant return. The first battle on the Iron Hoof Island, the second battle of the Expansion Order, and the third battle of the Dragon-Slaying War. The troops that greeted him were more magnificent than the last, corresponding to his identity every time he returned triumphantly, an elite Earth Knight with a bright future, the youngest Sky Knight, and the second strongest expert in the Grand Duchy. And now, the Dragon Knight, the new overlord of the sea. The different treatment of the family was admittedly a very obvious display of snobbery, but Liszt enjoyed this snobbery. It truly confirmed his continuous growth and progress in the past few years. Lee William was the first to get off the carriage and strode towards Madame Penelope. "Mother, I made you worry." However, Madame Penelope simply nodded, then went to greet Liszt, who got off the carriage and gave Liszt a big hug. The glorious son of the Tulip family, the family's Dragon Knight, after receiving the message, "I have been looking forward to your return every day." Such a warm hug. Liszt was a little helpless, so he just smiled and responded, "Grandmother." After the hug, Madame Penelope looked at Achi, who was beside Liszt, and also gave her a reserved hug. "Achi, good child." Achi smiled calmly. She did not have the warmth of a family member. She had always been indifferent to humans apart from Liszt. She could not even be warm to Isis, who was a siren, let alone humans whom she was not familiar with. If it wasn't for Liszt, she would have directly avoided this hug. After Madame Penelope hugged the Dragon Knight and Archwizard one by one, she stared at Liszt. Then, "My proud and great Dragon Knight, your dragon is in your body?" "Yes, grandmother. I actually just hugged a dragon." "You can say that." Liszt faintly smiled, then immediately called out in his mind. Leo, who was ready to go, suddenly rushed out of his body and turned into raging flames. When the flames were extinguished, a 20-meter-long red-black fire dragon with a 20-meter-long wingspan soared into the sky and flew towards the mountain on which the Tulip Castle was located not far away. It landed on the mountaintop and looked at the group of people at the foot of the mountain with a pair of eyes brimming with an evil spirit from afar. The crowd was in an uproar. Leo's flashy appearance shocked everyone. Looking at the fire dragon on the mountaintop in the distance, many people were so excited that their faces were flushed. Liszt helped the frightened Madame Penelope up and said, "Grandmother, let's go back to the castle first." "Oh, okay. Madame Penelope was trembling a little. She had practiced Qi for a period of time when she was young, but she didn't succeed, so she only had the identity of an ordinary person. The glimpse of dragons might just now really stimulated her gradually declining body. In fact, it was in consideration of Madame Penelope's body that Liszt told Leo to stay away from the crowd. Otherwise, if Leo's dragons might were to be unleashed, perhaps many people with poor health would directly faint. If he released Dragon's might for a while longer, even the Earth Knight would collapse. Even so, Madame Penelope still felt a little uncomfortable. Nearby, Rolia, who was welcoming Richard in her arms, burst into tears. A child who wasn't even a year old couldn't withstand the oppression of Dragon's might. But he was also lucky to have felt Dragon's might at such a young age. Just like that, the group of people stared at the fire dragon on the mountaintop while walking towards the Tulip Castle. After a while, the news spread throughout the Coral City as if it had grown wings. Everyone knew that the Dragon Knight of the Tulip family had returned, riding an incredibly terrifying fire dragon. Chapter 741. After entering the Tulip Castle, the family was happy and harmonious. List became a Dragon Knight and Achi became a magic shooter. They were both strong enough to shock the sea and were members of the Tulip family. Even Levis had successfully advanced to a Sky Knight. How could they not be happy? The topic continued to revolve around List. Women such as Madame Penelope, Madame Marie, Loria, and Elvira were unscrupulously complimenting List, making Levis feel cold. He had fantasized many times that he was promoted to a Sky Knight and how pleased his family would be. However, the truth was that his Sky Knight was just a green leaf used to set off the extraordinary red flower List. Fortunately, List was not a talkative person. After briefly describing the process of riding a dragon and satisfying everyone's curiosity, he stopped talking, allowing Levis to successfully seize back many opportunities to dominate the topic. While Levis was talking about how he was promoted to a Sky Knight, List quietly called out the smoke mission. Mission: the wonderful battle of the Dragon Slayer and the difficult choice of the Fruit Tree of Soul have consumed too much of your energy. Although your body is still strong, your spirit has long been exhausted. Why not relax and enjoy the cheers that an 18-year-old Dragon Knight should receive? Reward: a sprite worm. The mission has not changed. That is to say, my journey of enjoying cheers is not over yet? List silently calculated in his heart, probably still missing the cheers of the territory. From the cheers of the nobles of Bullhoof Island, to the cheers of the family of Coral Island, to the cheers of the people of Black Horse Island, it was about the same routine. In fact, it was very enjoyable to receive cheers at first. However, as he gradually listened to it more and more, especially when it was repeated every day, he felt annoyed. He just wanted to end it as soon as possible and resume his previous low-key and peaceful life. However, Marcus had already returned to the territory with orders of chivalry from Black Horse Island to prepare for his triumphant return. He was destined to receive a grand cheer. Today, I will temporarily rest in Tulip Castle. After the lunch banquet, he finally had some peace and quiet. He stayed in the study and quietly read for a while until Achi came back in the afternoon. Achi did not eat lunch in the castle. She was in a hurry to go to the Heart Island to do the experiment. She did not like to attend human banquet. The hypocritical social interaction made her feel uncomfortable. She took out the crystal cyathea that had been cut into several pieces from her spatial ring. Big brother, Achi brought back a completely crystallized crystal cyathea. Caressing the smooth and translucent trunk of the crystal cyathea, List asked, "Have you made any progress?" A fully crystallized crystal cyathea isn't much different from an ordinary crystal, but it has a special property. It can continue to replenish mana. Achi analyzed seriously. In other words, the crystals produced by the crystal cyathea can be recharged repeatedly. Repeated infusions. List's eyes lit up. In other words, magic items made from this crystal can be used repeatedly. Theoretically, yes, but we need to verify it accurately. Then let's first make a batch of mana equipment to test the properties of the crystal cyathea. Okay. Achi nodded obediently, then busied herself with her magic experiment. This made List feel very emotional. Ever since he had a chi, it seemed like he hadn't done any research for a long time. Other than focusing on practicing the Dragon Knight's chi manual, there was nothing else for him to do. He felt that his brain had become idle, but it was quite comfortable. He didn't want to work so hard. He even wanted to further liberate himself. Maybe when the mages from all over the world come to visit a chi and restrain them, I can form a guild of magic and let a chi lead it. It'll be structured according to the Academy of Sciences, and specialize in magic research in this world. This was a matter for the future. He took out his notebook and entered the Guild of Magic into his to-do list. This notebook that he carried with him was filled with all kinds of to-do lists, from the big ones like Light Dragon Plan to the small ones like Black Nightshade. Everything was recorded in detail. Occasionally, he would flip through it to see if there were any items that he had missed, and remind himself to do them. After running the territory for almost 3 years, he probably understood that he was not a management talent who was good at planning the overall situation. He usually did what he wanted, so he could only use a small notebook to replace the overall plan, and try to make up for the loopholes in the plan by checking for omissions. Then he played the role of his followers to maintain the operation of the territory's government. Finally, the effect was good. The population of the territory exceeded 100,000, and they could still live and work in peace and contentment. There were no more cases of serfs starving to death or freezing to death. After putting down the crystal Cyathea, Achi did not stay long and hurried to the Dodo Island to record the condition of the light green gem dragon. The dragon, which was swallowed by the fruit tree of soul, was still in a coma, and it was unknown when it would wake up. The next day, Liszt rode the little fire dragon Leo and left Tulip Castle. As it grew, Leo's flying speed became faster and faster, and it was already much faster than the running speed of the chocobo Loki. After arriving at Flower Town, he stopped for a while to meet with the administrative officer Isaiah and listened to the other excitedly talk about the development of the town in the past few days. Amid cheers and flattery, he flew back into the blue sky and white clouds, crossed the sea, and flew straight to Black Horse Island, landing in an open space near Thorn Castle. Roar! Leo let out a majestic dragon roar, and the dragon's might spread rapidly, hitting all humans and animals within a few kilometers. The closer the distance, the stronger the dragon's might. The crowd that greeted Liszt in front of Thorn Castle soon fell to the ground, foaming at the mouth. These were ordinary servants of Thorn Castle, and it was difficult for their bodies to withstand the oppression of the dragon's might. Leo, put away your dragon's might. Liszt scolded loudly. He did not plan to let Leo release his dragon's might. After all, the people here were all his subjects. However, Leo took the initiative to scare the ants in his eyes and show off his majesty as a fire dragon. Roar! Leo put away his dragon's might and directly crawled on the ground, as if he was sleeping. In fact, he was using the dragon heart code to communicate with Liszt. 20 potions, 30 roast cows, don't forget, I want to enjoy them today. Aren't you afraid of dying? I can eat as much as you want. The environment here is too bad, I hate sleeping on the ground, hurry up and build me a mountain, I like to sleep on the top of the mountain, the ants can only look up to me. There are no mountains on Black Horse Island, I will build you a 100-meter high rock building in the future, you can lie on it. He communicated with Leo in his mind. On the surface, Liszt shook his red, black, and gold-edged tricolor cloak and slowly walked towards the castle under the awe of the territorial knight, officials, and civilians. The front of the castle was crowded with people: Gort, Marcus, Yevich, Paris, Charles, Chris, Blair, Emily, everyone stared at their lord with fiery eyes. The great dragon knight, Liszt Tulip, of course. Aroyd's Truth, who was behind Liszt, was also the focus of attention. Fire Dragon, who was sleeping in the open space, was also the focus of attention. Chapter 742. This chapter is Sharp Little Teeth, Wan Zhang Jiao. Wow! The moment he stepped into the Thorn Castle, there was a familiar cry in his heart. Then he saw the Thorn sprite, Ella, flying down the stairwell and directly into the arms of List. This bad-tempered little elf was probably the most emotional of all the little elves. Has Ella been well-behaved these days? List caught the palm-sized Ella and asked Butler Carter with a smile. Since the birth of the thorn medicine, Ella's value has jumped to the same level as the giant algae sprite. Coupled with his own preference, Ella has a special status in the castle. Master, Ella has been quite well-behaved these days. Except for the daily scolding of the sprites in other rooms, she has not been too grumpy. But because she can't enter other rooms, she is probably a little stuffy, so she often runs to the thorn plantation and randomly sows thorn seedlings. Butler Carter replied seriously. But under the calm expression, his body trembled slightly with excitement. As long as he thought that his master turned out to be a great dragon knight, the loyal old butler could not help but be excited. When arranging to go to the countryside town, he never thought that he could become the butler of the Dragon Knight. Not only him, but the first group of servants, such as Mrs. Morrison and Mrs. Abbey, were all too excited to sleep when the news came the day before yesterday. Even after 2 days, they still could not calm their excitement. That's good. List rubbed Ella's head. The scattered thorn seedlings should be carefully screened and eradicated to prevent magic potions or mutated new types of thorns. The insect protection team cooperates with the magicians of the Wizard Tower. Every thorn seedling has been carefully investigated to ensure that no new types of thorns are missed. Yes. List nodded. The magicians of the Wizard Tower, under his control, have begun to turn to the scope of basic magic research. The relationship between sprites and plants is the key category of basic magic mechanic. Scientific management, scientific farming, and he believed that sooner or later, the secret of elven breeding could be found. Wow! Ella cried to show that she was helping with the farming, not playing. I see, little one. List smiled. He always felt that Ella's emotions were more abundant and vivid than other elves. He didn't know if it was because of the relationship between the feelings, or because of its more distinct personality. In short, Ella was the one that was different. Go play by yourself in the worm room first, I'll play with you later, List said as he handed it to the manservant Thomas and put it back in the worm room upstairs. After a while, the important knight and officials of the territory all gathered in the conference room. The servants poured the tea. List cut to the chase and said, "As you can see, I am a dragon knight, and Achilles is a magic shooter. Both of us stand at the pinnacle of power in this world. For the time being, my title is the Marquis of the Flame, and my fief is the Flame Territory. Legally, I have jurisdiction over Coral Island, Black Horse Island, and Iron Hoof Island and Iron Hoof City." Everyone looked at the Lord and waited for him to continue. List paused and continued, "But all this is just a transition. It won't be long before I find a new archipelago in the sea and build a new country. And everyone, work hard and do your task. In the new country, you will all be founding heroes. We are willing to drive for your highness." The crowd shouted. Even Chris, who did not swear allegiance, shouted with the crowd. This unprecedented dragon-slaying war completely established the foundation of List. No kingdom on the continent would be able to launch another dragon-slaying war. Therefore, the founding of the country was irresistible. No one could refuse the honor of personally participating in the building of a new country. Chris could not refuse the opportunity to become a court magician. Yevich could not refuse the possibility of becoming a founding noble. Gort and Marcus had served as List's tutors, and they could not refuse the glorious future. He was satisfied with the resounding response of his subordinate. List said indifferently, "The future is glorious. The glory of the night will always be with me, and the glory will be sprinkled on everyone here. In the future, we will all fight for the establishment of the new country, but the most urgent task is to maintain the stability of the territory and slowly take over the Flame territory. Coral Island had been nominally en fef to list, but it had not passed the 5-year harvest period and would not be easily transferred for the time being. Iron Hoof City of Iron Hoof Island, however, could be taken over immediately. It was a large city with a population of more than 150,000 people. It was the second largest city in the Grand Duchy of Sapphire, second only to the Blue Dragon City under the jurisdiction of the court. However, the current population of Iron Hoof City was only about 100,000. With the destruction of the Bull family, the aristocracy and freedmen were largely lost, and only serfs were still bound to the land. The loss of a large number of craftsmen would inevitably lead to the decline of Iron Hoof City. In particular, the output of the soil around Iron Hoof City would be greatly reduced after the elves were taken back by the Sapphire family. However, with Iron Hoof City's geographical location in the center of Iron Hoof Island, it still had great trade potential. Of course, even though Iron Hoof City was the second largest city in the Sapphire family, List still did not like it. The city's hygiene was not good, and it was very difficult to improve it. He also had no intention of improving it. In a few years, the city would sooner or later be returned to the Sapphire Grand Duke. He only intended to use Iron Hoof City as a transit point for trade in his territory and renovate the Bull Castle, which was second only to the Blue Sky Palace. The huge and magnificent Bull Castle barely fit his status. In addition to taking over the territory, the knight who will come to seek refuge also needs to be carefully selected. Only those who have both ability and integrity will have a place in the Flame territory. The knight who will seek refuge with the orders of chivalry will be led by Marcus, the knight who will seek refuge with the officials will be led by Gort, and the knight who has been screened will be led by Paris and Charles. The four of them got up one after another to express their understanding. Then there are the magicians on a pilgrimage. It can be foreseen that in the future, there will be many magicians staying in the Flame territory. I intend to establish a guild of magic that will govern the magicians under their real names. Achilles will be the president and Chris will be the vice president. Every magician must be included in the supervision. Chris nodded solemnly. Please rest assured, Your Highness. Finally, there is the nautical exploration to find new island. Yevich, I will directly purchase a few fast court sailboats from the Sapphire family. You and Captain Costo will work together to train more sailors as soon as possible. After the new year, we will set off to explore the south of the Cerulean Sea and search for possible islands. Yevich immediately replied, Yes, Your Highness. His voice was sonorous and powerful, as if it contained endless power. The fallen swordsman who once had nothing to lose could no longer be seen. Becoming a follower of a dragon knight was the most magnificent turnaround he had ever had in his life. Chapter 743. He sent the others away. He left Gort and Blair alone for a simple reason. You have to hand over your jobs as consultants and administrative officers of the port town as soon as possible. I will let you work in the Iron Shoe City. Gort will temporarily act as a consultant of the Iron Shoe City, and Blair will temporarily act as an administrative officer of the Iron Shoe City. Gort heard this and replied with a trembling voice, Your Highness, Gort swears loyalty to Your Highness. Blair choked. Swears loyalty to Your Highness, and will never let Your Highness down. Well, the Iron Shoe City is a large city with 100,000 people. This is a challenge for you. If you do well, you will take on greater responsibilities in the future. If you don't do well, I don't need to say more, do I? List was not optimistic about the two of them, whether in terms of means or courage. They were probably competent as consultants and administrative officers of a small city, but it was really dangerous to be responsible for a large city with 100,000 people. But unfortunately, Liszt had no one at his disposal, so he could only arrange it like this for the time being. After the Flame Lord had taken over, he would slowly adjust it. What if he lacked money, people, and elves? Rob. He discussed with the Sapphire Grand Duke, and issued a few more expansion orders to rob the Eagle Kingdom. When Gort and Blair left, he had already planned how to arrange the robbery plan. The fire dragon was an evil dragon. It did not produce, but its nature was to rob. As a fire dragon knight, he naturally could not abandon this talent, and had to develop it skillfully. The Eagle Kingdom's dragon knight was dead, and the dragon was kidnapped by Liszt halfway. It was at its weakest. Once it showed any signs of fatigue, Liszt would definitely not let it go. After all, the Eagle Kingdom had mastered navigation technology and could rob the benefits of the sea at any time, so it must be attacked. He wanted to let the nobles of the Eagle Kingdom understand that besides Sapphire, only he, Liszt, could dominate the sea. Speaking of which, Marquis Nuteo's letter should have already been delivered to his family. The representatives of the Yuhua Stone family should be here with the great elves to ransom him. If I knew this would happen, I would have captured a few more nobles before the dragon-slaying war started. Perhaps the elves' hands would have gone soft from receiving them. Unfortunately, before the battle started, he held the attitude of watching from the sidelines and did not make a move. After the battle started, he was too embarrassed to make a move because of his noble status as a dragon knight. While he was thinking, smoke slowly appeared in front of him. Mission completed. Reward: 1 thorn sprite worm. After receiving the cheers of his subjects, the mission was finally judged to be completed. Oh, not bad, not bad. Another thorn worm. Liszt originally thought that the smoke mission was lackluster and only took out a sprite worm to fool him. He did not expect it to be a thorn's sprite worm. A thorn worm could produce about 100 acres of auxiliary thorns, which could be used in a ratio of 1 to 3 with the magic potion. This was especially true for the Earth Knight and the Sky Knight who trained in Qi. The value of the supplementary medicine was far greater than the potion. The value of a thorn sprite worm was comparable to that of an ordinary sprite. At present, there were 2 auxiliary medicines in the territory, the auxiliary medicine Black Nightshade and the auxiliary medicine Thorns, both of which lacked sprites to be planted. This was also a reflection of Ella's importance. Immediately, the smoke in front of him changed and new serpentines appeared. Mission: you have noticed that the thorn sprite Ella is different. As the number of sprites in the territory continues to increase, it is inevitable to neglect Ella's emotions. However, the grumpy Ella is not willing to be a supporting role. It is working hard to advance. Please provide Ella with a new type of thorns. Reward: a greater sprite. Liszt was shocked. He felt that happiness had come too suddenly. The mission is Ella's endeavor, and the reward is a greater sprite. Does this mean that Ella is about to evolve into a greater sprite? He had not seen a sprite evolve into a greater sprite, but he knew the process of evolution from a lesser sprite to a greater sprite. The greater sprite of the tulip family, Xiang, evolved from a tulip sprite. The evolution process was not complicated. The sprite evolves into a lesser sprite. It needs to go through a fat pupa period and then break the cocoon and become a butterfly, flying out of the dead skin. The lesser sprite evolves into a greater sprite, but it only experiences a period of wilting. If it cannot overcome it, it will suffer a great loss of vitality or even directly die. However, after overcoming it, it can grow into a greater sprite. Its body will gradually grow from the size of a palm to the size of a baby. Its spiritual force and IQ will also greatly increase, and its vocal cords will fully develop, and it can learn to speak. Immediately. Go now. List waived the smoke mission and directly mobilized territorial officials to find new varieties of thorns. At the same time, he contacted Tulip Castle and asked Oxdale Marquis to mobilize his contacts to find new varieties of thorns. Even if he searched all of Sapphire, he must find different varieties of thorns to provide Ella with evolutionary pheromones. Ella was called over. List was happy but also a little nervous. This mission was risky. Although there was the shelter of the smoke mission, he should not fail, but who could guarantee that the result of the tulip worm would be repeated? Starting today, say Ella for a while before going to bed every day to enhance the subconscious control of the power of destiny. In any case, once Ella evolves into a greater sprite, she can live for 200 years. It should be enough to accompany him for 200 years. What's more, after Ella evolves, the planting area of auxiliary thorns can be greatly increased, and the production of magic potions in the territory will also double. Wow! Ella, you must work hard. Putting Ella on his shoulder, List began to patrol his castle, caring for every sprite and sprite worm, and went to the underwater worm room to tease the giant algae sprite Parker. The great sprite Parker did not live in the underwater worm room, but in the small underwater castle that Virginia Truth built for it at the mouth of the canal. It liked to be alone, and even its own kind of sprite hated it, let alone other sprites. After calling for a long time, it swam over lazily and ate the jade powder that List sprinkled on it. This great sprite was as narcissistic and poisonous as ever. List, quickly throw away Ella, a clown sprite, ugly. Wow! Clown that can't talk, really ugly. Parker grinned disdainfully, and his fangs were very eye-catching. Only List and Parker are handsome. Wow! Ella raised her hand and a green light appeared. Parker reacted very quickly, and also raised his hand with a yellow-brown light. Looking for a fight? All of you, stop! List slightly stirred up the dragon's fighting spirit and defeated the two rays of light. Parker, you are indeed handsome, but you have to keep a low profile. Parker has been very low-key. Parker floated on the water and said, Parker was the most handsome, but in order to take care of your mood, you are barely counted. Oh! List listened and left the underwater worm room without looking back. He really had nothing in common with Parker. Before leaving, he did not forget to teach the sprite on his shoulder. Ella, when you evolve into a great sprite, remember not to learn from Parker or you will lose me. Chapter 744. After lunch, List began his inspection of the territory. The first place he went to was the thorn plantation. After several inspections, it was easy to find a thorn that had already bred a sprite worm, and it was a fast-growing poisonous thorn. No matter what kind of thorn sprite worm it was, it could be planted with potions. List ordered the worm protection team to take care of the breeding thorn sprite worm. List was too lazy to continue his inspection. The news that he had become a dragon knight had spread like rain to every corner of the island. Everywhere he went, there were bound to be a large number of serfs who were not concentrating on their work and peeking at him. The officials all had dog noses, frantically looking for excuses to get close to List, even just to see the great dragon knight lord from a distance. This situation was difficult to calm down in a short time. The dragon knight was too shocking. Everyone grew up listening to the story of the dragon knight when they were young. Even the lowest serfs had dreams of becoming a dragon knight when they were young. In all knight novels, 99% of the protagonists will ride a dragon. Even if you can't ride a dragon, you have to at least kill a dragon. Annoying. List rode the chocobo Loki and flew to Thorn Castle. After a while, he returned to the castle. He felt that there was nothing to do urgently, so he simply trained the blizzard beasts for a while. In peacetime, the blizzard beasts were basically moving rock mines. Every day, a retainer knight would take them to a special stone square, allowing the blizzard beasts to release magic at will in the stone square, consuming so much energy that it wanted to overflow. Woof woof! Dosen had grown up and was no longer as enthusiastic as when he was a child. He began to have the majesty of an intermediate world of Warcraft. However, the uncontrollable wagging of its tail betrayed its steadiness. The 8 little ones lined up behind Trembling Woods, maintaining the strict discipline of the battlefield. This blizzard beast squad, under List's training, was like a pack of wolves. Dosen, Rockthorn. List pointed. Dosen quickly opened his mouth, and a huge rockthorn pierced out from a designated position in the distance. Their cooperation was still skillful, but he sighed softly. Unfortunately, my battlefield is no longer a knight's charge or a siege. You can't continue to shine by following me. Thinking of this, he ordered the retainer knight behind him, "Go find Emily." "Yes, Your Highness." The 12-year-old girl arrived quickly. She was wearing a leather armor that was almost worn out. The do-chi in her body was already very abundant, and her skin had been tanned to a healthy wheat color. Although her body hadn't developed much, her tall stature still showed a valiant and heroic bearing. Her delicate and exotic face was quite charming. "Your Highness, how's your cultivation recently?" Compared to the speed of training on the battlefield, the efficiency of normal training is too low. Emily's face was filled with a sense of urgency. The count she admired and chased after had become a dragon knight, while she was still an elite earth knight. She felt that the gap between them was getting bigger and bigger, and so was the pressure. She had completely forgotten that she was only a 12-year-old girl who had only trained for a year and a half. To be able to have such achievements was enough to show disdain for all of Sapphire, and even the kingdom of the continent. Don't always think about improving your strength. A balance between work and rest is the best way to train. Emily knows it's just, stop. List directly raised his hand to stop Emily from speaking. It was nothing more than worrying about the impact of her menstrual period. It was a little awkward for a little girl to talk about her menstrual period all day. However, looking at the girl's stubborn expression, he still admired her. If he had the girl's hard work, perhaps he would have created a set of Fire Dragon Knight, Dragon Do-Chi Secret Manual. Inexplicably, he thought of the light green gem dragon. He only had one butt and couldn't ride 2 dragons at the same time. Emily in front of him, loyalty was not a problem, and her talent was blessed by the smoke's power of fate. Perhaps she could be of great use. If the kingdom could come up with a Dragon Knight backup plan, he suddenly wanted to come up with such a plan. Of course, Emily was a woman. This world had never heard of a female Dragon Knight being born. Whether she was worth cultivating or not, he had to consider the risks involved. And women had to marry sooner or later. List quickly suppressed his random thoughts. He thought for a moment and took out a purple crystal tortoiseshell the size of a palm from his space ring. "Take this tortoiseshell. I took it from the Dragon Knight Carl Low Violet. Wearing it will help your thunder attribute Do-Chi grow." She took the tortoiseshell. Even though she had been pretending to be cold and mature, feeling the surging thunder attribute magic, Emily was still trembling with excitement. "Your Highness, Emily." She suddenly felt hot tears welling up in her eyes. She choked with sobs and couldn't speak. "This was the Dragon Knight's personal item," Lys said calmly. "If you think it's valuable, make good use of it. Grow quickly and drive me into battle." "Yes, Your Highness, Emily belongs to Your Highness. I swear my life to Your Highness and am ready to fight for Your Highness at any time." Emily could only repeat the declaration to express her gratitude. "With the tortoise shell and a sufficient supply of potions, your Do-Chi will not stagnate, so you don't have to practice hard every day. I will give you a new task. Take 2 hours a day to help me train the Blizzard Beast Squad. In the future, when we charge on the battlefield, they will be under your command." Emily solemnly said, "As you wish, Your Highness." Then from tomorrow onwards, arrive at Thorn Castle on time at 9 o'clock in the morning. I will personally teach you how to train the blizzard beast. Yes. You may leave. Emily bowed respectfully and left Bramble Castle. List breathed a sigh of relief. Dosen was an important helper in his rise. Without Dosen's siege, there would be no rapid development. But now that the blizzard beasts could not keep up, it would be a waste of their skills to keep them as pets. They were World of Warcraft, not native dogs. Leaving them to Emily to train may be the best choice. There was another thing that happened in the afternoon. Garcia and Fox, two Sky Knights who had been captured, asked to see List. What can I do for you two? List was quite helpless towards these two men. Alonso was confident that he could sweep Sapphire, so there was no need to talk about ransom at all. As a result, they were routed and fled without a trace. The issue of ransom for the two men was naturally far away. Your Highness, His Highness Alonso, has not paid ransom for us for a long time. This time, the Battle of the Dragon Slayer was won by His Highness. I am afraid it will be difficult for our ransom to be realized. We can't wait any longer. If we don't get the supply of potions, our chi cultivation will completely degenerate, Garcia said with a bitter face. Fox continued, so after careful consideration, we hope to follow His Highness and fight for His Highness from now on. Both of them were orphans. Because they had not made too many contributions, they were not titled and did not get married. They had always been looking forward to making contributions for Alonso. However, they became captives in the Battle of Trapped Dragon Mountain. Not only did they not make any contributions, but they also lost their training materials. The more advanced a knight was, the more they needed potions. Now that they had been imprisoned on Black Horse Island for more than 2 months, List naturally would not give them the potions. If this continues, their chi will degenerate, and they may even fall to the level of an Earth Knight. At that time, it would be difficult to attack the level of a Sky Knight. It was tantamount to a ruined future. In the face of the collapse of their cultivation, the end of their future, and the delay of the Lord to pay the ransom, the two were unable to maintain their loyalty to Alonso, even if they guessed that Alonso might be preparing to rescue them after the Battle of the Dragon Slayer and avoid paying the ransom. However, it was still not good. At least Alonso should have written a letter to take care of them, instead of ignoring them. Now that Alonso had failed in the Battle of the Dragon Slayer and List had risen strongly, the two naturally changed their mentality and surrendered to List. Chapter 745. This chapter is The Little Whale Who Loves Chocolate, Wan Zong Chong. The country needed a lot of manpower, and List, who planned to rob talents, naturally would not refuse 2 Sky Knight captives who were already familiar with him. In fact, during this period of time, the two of them had been doing a good job at the Knight Academy. Their characters were also passable. One could not expect a knight to swear to die and not surrender. A knight's war was a game for the nobles. If they were captured, they would either have to pay a ransom or surrender. He planned to separate the two. Garcia was arranged to go to the Iron Hoof City and be in charge of 1 Orders of Chivalry. Fox stayed on Black Horse Island and was also in charge of 1 Orders of Chivalry. Just like Garcia and Fox, after learning that Achi was a magic shooter, the 3 archmages Lars, Cyril, and Delaka, who were captured from the Eagle Kingdom, cried out that they wanted to follow Achi and listen to the teachings of the truth. In the understanding of mages, magic shooters were the embodiment of the truth in the secular world. So with Achi's halo, Chris quickly established the Flame Territory Guild of Magic in the Mage Tower. With Achi as the president, Chris as the vice president, and the 3 great magicians and Mary Dawn as the executive committee, the guild quickly set up a framework. All magicians who joined the guild were required to accept the guild's mandatory management, and all research projects had to be reviewed by the guild. Of course, List also referred to some of his own ideas and proposed a lot of constructive management plans for the Guild of Magic. for example, providing laboratories for the great magicians, funding projects, arranging magician assistants, magic apprentices, etc., but the great magicians had to turn in their research papers and research results. In fact, it was similar to the laboratory system on Earth, where the great magicians were the professors who did the research. The state funded the research, the professors enjoyed the honor, and the final results were turned in. At the same time, in addition to the magician's own cultivation level, there would also be a set of arcanist levels evaluated according to scientific research results. They were roughly divided into arcanist, great arcanist, chief arcanist, arcanist tutor, and so on. There was no such term as arcanist in this world, so Liszt used it instead of the term professor. He always felt that arcanist was a little higher than professor. Under the framework of the Guild of Magic, the Arcanist Assessment Committee was quickly established. A Chi was appointed as the chairman of the committee, with the right of veto and the right to forcibly promote. Liszt, on the other hand, appointed himself as the observer of the committee, with the right of veto, direct promotion, and the right to dissolve the committee at any time. Basically, he had the final say in the Guild of Magic and the Arcanist assessment. If he didn't say anything, then everything would be left to a Chi. If a Chi didn't say anything, she would follow the rules of the Guild of Magic and the Arcanist Assessment Board. The establishment of the Guild of Magic and the Arcanist Assessment Board was not a joke. As more and more mages in the territory participated in the construction of the territory, an effective system for managing mages had to be established to provide services to Liszt at all times. For example, the cultivation of the crystal cyathea became the first topic of research after the establishment of the Guild of Magic. Magicians could choose to accept or reject the research. Once they accepted the research, they had to produce results within a specified time. He had successfully cultivated a new crystal cyathea and submitted the cultivation plan to the Guild of Magic for the large-scale cultivation of crystal cyathea in his territory. If you want to be taught by a magic shooter, you have to join the Guild of Magic and provide research result. Otherwise, get lost. Liszt was very direct. Chris, you will strictly manage the Guild of Magic according to the requirements I set. Anyone who dares to violate the rules of the guild or is unwilling to join the guild will be expelled. Yes, Your Highness. In addition, mages are not allowed to conduct forbidden magic experiments in private. Once discovered, they will be expelled. If the circumstances are serious, they will be obliterated. He always had his guard up against mages. After setting the high standards, Liszt finally had the time to inquire about the progress of some magic experiment. It's going to snow soon. How's the cultivation of the snow flame mushroom? Does it conflict with the flame mushroom in the weave? Judging from the current cultivation signs, although both are fire elemental cordyceps, they do not conflict with each other. Give me the detailed data as soon as possible. I'm ready to trade the cordyceps again. The cordyceps was a plan that Liszt had made a long time ago. He wanted anything that could increase his potions. The Guild of Magic can release more research on the cordyceps. His Excellency Achilles told me the same thing. He believes that the relationship between the cordyceps and the weave is the most direct way for ordinary mages to study the weave. Yes. With a cheese arrangement, Liszt could be at ease. He left the Mage Tower. He continued to deal with official business. Coral Island and Black Horse Island were mobilizing serfs to find new varieties of thorns, but the results were not good. There were no new varieties. Oxtail Territory and Iron Hoof City also arranged for night to search. Lee William also wrote letters to many noble lords who were in contact with them, asking them to search for thorns. Even the Sapphire Grand Duke, Liszt wrote a letter asking the Sapphire family to help find it. If Ella wanted to evolve, perhaps any new variety of thorns could trigger the evolution conditions, but in order to increase the probability of its evolution success, the more new varieties of thorns, the better. Even if the increase of pheromones did not increase the probability of success, at least it could give psychological comfort. On the path of evolution, Liszt had no idea how to help Ella. Comfort, encouragement, watering, fertilizing, increasing pheromones, that was all he could do. The palace speedboats allocated by the Sapphire family were soon delivered to Black Horse Island. There were a total of 6 new ships. Originally, it was intended to supplement the palace fleet, but Liszt wanted to find an archipelago as soon as possible to establish a country as soon as possible. The Grand Duke also wanted Liszt to leave quickly. 6 speedboats, 3 for the territory to supplement trade, and 3 for Yevich and Kosto to train. As soon as the New Year's Day was over, they would set off for exploration. Not only was the Grand Duke anxious, but Liszt also wanted to find a place to establish a country as soon as possible. The earlier they found it, the earlier they could develop it. Before the territory industry was fully spread out, they could directly complete the industry transfer to avoid too many losses during the transfer of the territory. Time flew by and half a month had passed. News about the Eagle Kingdom finally reached Liszt's hands. There was information provided by the Sapphire Grand Duke and the Blood Servant. The Dragon Knight Karl Law is dead, and the Eagle Kingdom is furious. It is rumored that the king said on the spot that he would launch a second dragon-slaying war. The news of the failure of the dragon-slaying war spread, and the situation on the borders of the 3 countries was turbulent. Alonso had to rush to the front line immediately to take charge of the border. The Iron and Steel Ridge Kingdom sent an emissary group on the way to Sapphire, ready to visit me? The Eagle Kingdom does not seem to give up, sending a large number of ships to harass the Sapphire Fleet trade route, and there are disputes at sea. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.